Hello. If you were looking for a scare tonight, you've come to the right place. I'll be narrating an hour's worth of creepy horror stories that I found off of Reddit. So without further ado,
These are their stories.
In October 1978, Philadelphia police responded to a dead body call at an abandoned theater. They arrived on scene to discover most of a corpse of a young woman on the stage. Her hands and feet were bound. At some point post-mortem, the perpetrator had decapitated the victim and stitched the head of a bald man onto her neck. Heavy stage makeup had been applied to the man's face. His mouth was sewed shut. When one of the responding officers knelt down to inspect these sutures, the corpse's eyes opened. The body shuddered to life, stretching until the bindings broke. The amalgam rose unsteadily to its feet, dipped into a formal bow, and began to move. The braver of the two officers grabbed the corpse, believing it to be a hoax of some kind. He grabbed it by the throat with such force that he tore the sutures attaching the man's head to the woman's neck. Now only partially attached, the head flopped to the side. The officer recoiled, and the corpse continued to move as though nothing had happened. At this point, someone yelled, "Stop it, you're interrupting him." The speaker was a young girl of approximately 10 years old, sitting at the highest point in the auditorium, a crumbling balcony with no visible point of egress. The corpse paid her no attention and began whirling feverishly around the stage. The head was still only partially detached, but the corpse seemed unaware. Per their later testimony, the police officers slowly realized they were watching a one-man reenactment of a murder. As the gruesome performance carried on, the little girl in the corner began to cry with steadily increasing emotion. Her weeping finally culminated in a wail when the corpse mimed sawing his own head off. He pulled his head off, sutures snapping loudly as they parted through the flesh, then tucked it under his arm and ran backstage and out of sight. Despite the distance between the theater and Nascu, the Harlequin, by all accounts secure in his cell inside the facility, expressed knowledge of this incident. He provided staff with the address of the theater and told them, "My son is performing there tonight, not one of his best unfortunately, but I'll tell him you're coming if you like." Personnel were immediately dispatched to the theater. By the time personnel arrived, 2 days had passed. They obtained the relevant police reports. Among other things, they learned that officers fled the scene without recovering the young girl since she was unreachable on the crumbling balcony. Although the officers returned with reinforcements, the dancing corpse was nowhere to be found. Neither was the child. But when agency personnel entered the theater during their investigation, both the girl and the dancing corpse were back inside. Personnel quickly realized they had arrived toward the end of the performance. The child was sobbing so loudly that she inadvertently masked the sounds of their entry. They concealed themselves accordingly, taking refuge in a small alcove near the back of the auditorium, and watched as the corpse, which in keeping with the police reports was a woman's body with a man's head sewn on, continued to dance. Shortly after their arrival, the corpse completed its performance and retreated backstage. Approximately 2 minutes later, a man with a face identical to that of the head sewn onto the woman's corpse returned on stage, visibly weeping. In his arms was the woman's corpse, now headless. Chest heaving silently, he gave a deep bow. As agents watched, the crying child bolted on stage and hugged the man, at which point the agents made themselves known. The man vanished backstage. When agents attempted to follow, the child interfered. By the time she was restrained, the man was nowhere to be found. Resigned, they returned to interrogate the girl, who was still standing on stage. She refused to provide her name, but was willing to answer other questions. When asked what the corpse had been doing, the girl answered, "He's showing me what Randall did." When asked if the entity was Randall, she shook her head. When asked who the man was, she said, "Pantomime. He taught me how to act." Finally, when asked why Pantomime would show her such a terrible thing, she said, "Because he's sorry." She refused to provide any additional information. When the agents attempted to take her into custody, Pantomime reappeared and attacked them with catastrophic results, allowing her to escape. Once she was no longer on site, Pantomime transformed. He became docile and even expressed regret in a non-verbal manner for the injuries he inflicted on the agents. He then waited obediently for additional personnel to arrive and came into agency custody without further incident. When asked why, he wrote a simple answer: "Because my father can't get me if I go with you." Investigation post-arrest showed that Pantomime's stomach contained partially digested bone matter and meat from a human victim. When agency personnel removed his mouth suture, researchers, they discovered that his tongue was missing. Experimentation shows that Pantomime is able to remove and reattach his head and limbs at will. He is able to attach his head and limbs onto dead bodies. Pantomime maintains control over any limb attached to another individual. For example, if his head is attached to someone else, he has complete control over that body until decomposition compromises the structures. Additionally, Pantomime has the ability to project mental images and fantasies into reality for limited amounts of time. He can only do this after consuming human brain tissue. Pantomime's most frequently projected scenes consist of himself and a young woman. Nothing of note ever happens in these scenes. Pantomime's tongue has been observed to reappear and disappear in apparently random fashion. It should be noted that on November 26, 2024, Pantomime's tongue reappeared and he asked to speak to Commander R. Wingeride. Pantomime disclosed largely non-specific knowledge of a plot between the Harlequin and unknown agency personnel. This disclosure, combined with the return of Pantomime's ability to speak, prompted administration to schedule an interview with the agency's specialized interviewer with the goal of obtaining additional details about this plot. It should be noted that Pantomime rarely speaks. Nevertheless, he can write and does so extensively with little prompting. The caveats with Pantomime's writing are as follows. His writings take the form of stage plays, complete with character dialogue and stage directions. Every one of Pantomime's works is titled All the World's a Stage. The Harlequin is a recurring figure in Pantomime's plays. The relationship between Pantomime and the Harlequin is not understood. Pantomime consistently refuses to elaborate. The Harlequin describes their relationship thus: "My son sang most beautifully in my city bright." Pantomime's many plays are primarily a variation on a theme. They follow the life of Pantomime as he forms a friendship with a young woman named Sarita. The plays are always told through Sarita's perspective. Sarita is a poverty-stricken woman who is bullied mercilessly both at home and at work. Sarita's childhood dream is to be an actress, although she knows it will never happen due to her unattractiveness and her lack of talent. But the dream doesn't die. As stated in one of the most notable lines of the play, this dream burns on in defiance of reality. One day, Sarita finds an abandoned theater. She begins to spend her free time there, twirling around on stage and acting out scenes in private, far from critical eyes. But unbeknownst to her, Pantomime lives in the theater and he loves to watch her. One day, she catches him spying on her. Rather than running away, she chases him through the theater until she corners him backstage. They form a friendship. Sarita and Pantomime spend their afternoons acting together. Something strange happens when they're on stage. Sarita changes, becoming more beautiful, and the scenes they act out start to become real. She describes it as an enchantment, a real-life fantasy world that evaporates at the curtain call. What Sarita doesn't know is that Pantomime lives in the theater because it is used as a dumping ground by a killer. The stream of bodies provides Pantomime with a steady supply of human bones and human brains through which he derives the energy required to briefly project his and Sarita's scenes into reality. One day, Sarita's friend Debbie disappears. Sarita goes to Pantomime's theater, bursting inside just in time to see Pantomime biting into Debbie's head. Sarita believes Pantomime is the killer and runs away, never to return. After her departure, Pantomime cries silently until the Harlequin appears. Note: alone of the characters in Pantomime's plays, the Harlequin speaks in iambic pentameter. In his writings, Pantomime's iambic pentameter is flawless. The Harlequin also speaks in iambic pentameter in the interview transcribed below. However, the interviewer noted multiple flaws in either meter or stressed syllables in the Harlequin's iambic pentameter as verbally related by Pantomime. Whether this is relevant is not known. The Harlequin asks, "Remember how you sang so beautifully for gods and monsters in my bright city?" Pantomime only weeps. The Harlequin tells Pantomime that he'll take him back to the city bright if he doesn't find Sarita and consume her head. He retreats backstage, leaving Pantomime to weep until curtain. The agency notes that Pantomime exhibited significant psychological distress when he learned that the Harlequin is also incarcerated at the Pantheon. Interview subject: Pantomime. Classification string: non-cooperative / indestructible / agnosto / constant / substantial / hemitheos. Interviewer: Raquel B. Date: November 28, 2024. She was an ugly girl, but so what? I wanted to give her the world. Only I didn't have the world. I only had what I had, which was less than nothing. I knew from the second I saw her that she was perfect for me. I've never told anyone this before because I hate the way it sounds, but from the very start I wanted to make all her dreams come true. true. I wanted to be her dream come true. It was a scary feeling, real scary, especially because strictly speaking she was way too young for me. But that wasn't scariest, not even close. Scariest was feeling that way in the first place. Freaked me out pretty bad and it made me act weird at first. Yeah, looking back, I was pretty weird about it for a bit, but she didn't hold it against me. She was such a good girl. We worked nights at the arena, mostly after the crowds left, breaking down the setups, prepping the place for tomorrow's show, scrubbing beer and soda and popcorn and half-eaten hot dogs and puke and God knew what else off the stands. Sometimes we'd pick through the lost and found bins on our breaks, especially when the boss wasn't around. He wasn't around on the holidays, so we stole a lot of stuff leading up to Thanksgiving and Christmas. She called those lost and found bins our special Christmas tree. No one ever knew what we were talking about. It felt great having those inside jokes with her. During hockey season, we'd turn on the spotlights and go slipping and sliding all over the ice. She called it primitive ice skating, but mostly it was just falling. I didn't care. She was a dreamer. She told about all her dreams. Moving to California to be either a movie star or a beach bum, depending on how tired she was feeling that day, or moving to New York City to work at an art museum, going to college to learn how to do something, that's what she always said, I just want to learn something, or getting a job at the police department to get benefits for her sisters, learning to bartend so she could make tips, or how to sew so she could make costumes for her cat, auditioning for the star role in the community theater, or writing a book just so she could say she'd written a book. I liked when she talked about her dreams with me, felt like it meant something. She was such a good girl, happy all the time, smiles all around, helpful even when being helpful hurt her. She was also kinda, I don't know how to say it, a tiny bit bad, no, not bad, wicked. She was kind of a little bit wicked, but that just made her even better for me. And she was already perfect for me. She always made me feel good things. Before her, I wasn't the best at feeling good things, but she changed that, and it was great. When you feel good things, you eventually think good things too. And me, I was feeling good and thinking good for probably the first time in years. It was all because of her, because she was such a good girl. Me though, I wasn't a good guy. She didn't know that. I used to have nightmares about her finding out. Isn't that crazy? Literal nightmares. I don't know what I would have done if she'd known how good I wasn't. She wouldn't have showed me her special Christmas tree or taken me slipping and sliding all over the ice with me if she'd known. She definitely wouldn't have been my best friend if she'd have known. So I'm real glad she didn't know. Like I told you, I knew even before I said a word to her that I wanted to give her the world. You know how screwed up that is, feeling that way when there's nothing you can do about it, knowing you'd burn the world down for someone but never even getting a chance to buy the match you need to do it. She was an ugly girl, yeah, but it didn't matter to me. That's not the problem. That's the opposite of a problem. That's love. The problem was there were other people that didn't matter too, and one of them didn't need to buy a match because he owned the match factory. I was nice about it, I really was. Not all the time, of course. Not even most of the time. Not on the way to work, not on the way back home, definitely not at home, not in private, not in my thoughts, not anywhere on the inside, but when I was with my girl in the arena breaking down the sets and preparing for tomorrow's show and cleaning beer and soda pop and God knows what else off the stands, when we were sitting down around our special Christmas tree and when we were slip sliding all over the under spotlights so hot they made the ice melt a little under our feet. I was nice about it. I didn't even have to nice for too long because that rich jerk broke her heart. He told her she was a good girl, but she wasn't for him, wasn't sophisticated enough, wasn't pretty enough, just plain wasn't enough for his family. And guys like him, they need girls who are enough for their families. I was sad about it. I really was. Not all the time. Not even most of the time. Not on the way to work. Not on the way back home. Definitely not at home. Not in private. Not in my thoughts. Not anywhere on the inside. But when I was with my girl in the arena breaking down the sets and preparing for tomorrow's show and cleaning beer and soda pop and God knows what else off the stands, when we were sitting down around our special Christmas tree, and when we were slip sliding all over the under spotlights so hot they made the ice melt a little under our feet, I was sad about it because she needed me to be sad and all I wanted was to give her what she needed. Well, okay, that's not all I wanted. I also wanted to make my move, but I wasn't a fool. I'm a lot of things, most of them bad, but not a fool. She was too sad, too heartbroken over that rich jerk to spare even an inkling of that kind of feeling for me. me. And to make it even more complicated, she was going to have that rich guy's baby. She was a dreamer. I told you that already, how she was a dreamer who shared all her dreams with me. She kept sharing them even after the rich guy broke her heart, old dreams and new. Her new dreams started to include that baby. I wasn't too happy about that at first. That's pretty ugly of me, I know. But then I thought it through, really thought it through, you know, and after I thought it through, I decided that was actually a really good thing. Parents are supposed to want the best for her kids. I liked that she wanted the best for it. Just kind of reinforced what a good girl she was as far as I was concerned. It was good of her to not blame the baby for his dumbhead dad. You know how much better my life would have been if my mom hadn't blamed me for my dumbhead dad. That didn't make it any easier to not make my move though. I really wanted to make my move, I'm telling you. I would have done anything. I wanted to give her the world. I'd have even given that baby the world. But I didn't have the world to give, do you understand? How could I make my offer when I didn't even have anything to offer? She deserved more than that. She was a good girl. One night after the show, a big massive show, the kind that leaves the sort of mess that ought to be illegal, my girl just burst into tears. My good smiley girl crying was awful. Watching her cry made me feel so useless, so worthless. I didn't know what to do. I would have done anything to put that smile back on her face. Anything at all. Burn the world down if I had to. Hell, by that point, burning the world down wasn't even a hard sell. I tried to talk to her about her dreams, to help her cheer up, you know, to remind her how to smile, how important it is to smile and how you need to feel good feelings so you can think good thoughts and do good things, to help her the way she always helped me, but that just made it worse. All she said was, dreams don't come true, dreams aren't real, never were, never will be. Let me tell you, that broke my heart, maybe as much as hers was broken. It just broke me right down, seeing my good dreamer girl crushed under the world. I'd have done anything to pull the world off her, anything at all. That's all I wanted, to make her dreams come true. She went home after she told me dreams aren't real, leaving me to clean up the rest of the mess by myself. She called in sick the night after too. It was hard being in there without her. I started pretending that she was there with me, helping me break down the sets and prep for tomorrow's show and cleaning up the beer and the soda pop and God knows what else. I pretended it was like the old days before the rich guy broke her heart. I pretended to pick presents out from our special tree. I got on the ice and pretended I was slipping and sliding with her. I pretended we were getting closer. I pretended she looked at me under the lights and realized I was her dream come true. And that's when this big crazy guy in a giant hood comes loping across the ice like a tiger, and he grabs my hands, just grabs them. You know what's even crazier? After he takes me hands, he tries to slip and slide around the ice with me, like he could read my mind and was pretending to be my good girl. And then this crazy bastard, you know what he said to me? He says, "Would you, my child, become my cherished son?" And I'm like, what the hell? I try to get away, but he clamps down real hard on my hands and keeps pulling me along the ice, slipping and sliding like nothing's wrong. Then he goes, "I weave the dreams my children wish to see." I don't know what's wrong with you, but I think you need to stop talking and get going before I call the cops. If I should leave, then all your dreams will die. What? I hold the key to make your dreams come true. I pulled my hands out and tried to back away, but I only slipped and fell. No more sliding for me. As I lay there, rubbing my head as stars go rocketing across my vision, this jerk kneels down beside me and he says, "I find your troubles quite a joy to see." What? Your troubles bring me joy. They entertain, and life devoid of mirth is but a strain. The longer he talked, the easier it was to understand him. Does that make sense? Like he was saying crazy old English stuff and I didn't really get it, but at the same time I was figuring out the meaning under the words. And when he said that about life being a strain, I knew he was really saying that he thought me and all my problems were entertaining. Like, this bastard thought I was funny for being sad about my girl. He was laughing at me, and for what? Wanting to give someone the world? Screw that. That's what I told him too. Screw you. Your troubles bring a smile upon my face, for in your misery joy I find, and grace. I long to help your dreams come forth anew. With every laugh I'll strive to make them true. He was making fun of me even harder then, because what he was saying was my troubles with my girl were so entertaining to him that he wanted to help me, in exchange for all the entertainment I provided with my sadness, with my pain, my actual legitimate pain. He was saying he was going to make all my dreams come true. Crazy, right? Crazy enough that I'd already had enough. Crazy big Shakespeare bastard or not, I was done. I got up taking care so I didn't fall and crack my head again, and started to march out. I was looking forward to calling the cops on this bastard for trespassing. As I'm slip sliding across the ice on the way to call the cops, this guy says, "Beneath the special Christmas tree, look near. A gift I've left to bring you joy and cheer." I shouldn't have listened. I shouldn't have looked. I know that now. I knew that then. But I just couldn't help myself. Instead of leaving and calling the cops, I went to the lost and found bins. And there, sitting across the top like a giant Three Stooges prop, was the biggest, stupidest looking box of matches I will ever see. The thing was the size of a go-kart. It was almost as big as the bin. It was ridiculous. I should have either gotten mad, like really pissy at this bastard for making fun of me like that, or I should have gotten scared. Looking back, I really wish I'd gotten scared and run the hell away. That's what I'd do now. Run the hell away and never think about this again. That's not what I did. I couldn't help myself. Looking at that giant matchbox made me feel curious. That made me start thinking curious things. Thinking things like, what if maybe this crazy bastard knew my girl, or the rich guy who broke her heart? Things like, what if he didn't know them at all but could read my mind? Things like, what if he was some kind of genie or angel, some spirit of giving or generosity or true love or something? What if he had come specially to help me? Things like, what if this crazy bastard wasn't crazy at all? What if he was magic? I always wanted to believe in magic. Guess you could say I used to dream of it. Are you telling me to burn the world down for her? I asked. You need not set the entire world ablaze, but rather only this one single stage. It took me a minute to figure out what he was really saying. You want me to burn the arena down? Why would I do that? To do this now will truly entertain. To be entertained brings me much delight. If you will entertain me here this night, I'll weave your dreams and into them breathe life. I didn't like where this was going. I didn't like it at all. I knew what freaks like him meant when they talk about generosity and entertainment. I told him so, told him I don't swing that way, and even if I did, it wouldn't be for a freak like him. And then he did this thing, shifted, all weird, you know, and after he shifted, he grew, and grew and grew, and that's when I knew I wasn't dealing with some freak. This was something else. This was some magic. Before I can move, he grabs me and picks me up, right by the scruff of my uniform, like a dirty kitten, and he hauls me up, right up to the spotlight. That sizzling, spitting spotlight that's so hot it makes thin ice melt if you accidentally leave it on too long. And then he shoves my face against the light. The pain. It was so bad I couldn't even be scared. But that was good. It was good that I was screaming so loud and hurting so much because it meant I was too busy to really notice that the bastard's hood had fallen away. Too busy to really see what I was seeing. Even through all that pain, what I saw, what I see made me turn my face up to that spotlight to burn my own eyes out. Before I could, the monster pulled me away, cooked cheek skin sticking to that light and sizzling, still popping, and laid me down burned first on the ice. The spotlight was dimmer now because that big piece of my own popping, sizzling skin was casting a shadow, like the biggest, weirdest, grossest shadow puppet that ever was. I either bring more pain or grant your dreams. Both paths amuse, so choose which as you will. I knew what he's saying, that he could either burn me again or make my dreams come true. It was up to me, and he didn't care which choice I made because it would be entertaining either way. But I couldn't answer. That's because I was still seeing what was under his hood. He didn't like that I couldn't answer. You'll burn this arena or I shall burn you. Set fire first and your dreams will come true. That kind of broke me out of my spell, and I couldn't believe it. I just couldn't believe it. How insane was this? This thing walked right out of a nightmare, out of a dream. I was delirious, I admit it. Wouldn't you be? You would if you'd looked under his hood and seen what I saw. And I guess because I was delirious, I started thinking. I thought of nightmares. Nightmares made me think of dreams. Thinking of dreams made me think of my girl. How all I wanted was to give her the world. How I'd burn the world down for her if she asked. How maybe, I'd just been given something. Not a match. A flamethrower. If I burn it down, I said, if I burn this place down for you, you'll make my dreams come true. He smiled. I couldn't see his face under the hood, but I could see his teeth shining weird in that shadowy spotlight. Can I check my dreams with you first? Make sure they don't break any wishing rules or something? The smile got bigger. I'd never seen a smile like that, but I see it all the time now. Every minute, every day. I think I'm going to see it forever, and that makes me wish I could die. But I didn't want to die then. I thought about things for a minute. I thought really hard. I needed to be careful to make sure I was getting what I wanted, what I needed, what she needed. I want to be able to make all her dreams come true. Can you make that happen? Entertainment's essence, dreams that come to life, your dearest wish I vow to make true. It's crazy, I guess, but that was enough for me. Maybe because my face was still burning, maybe because standing under my own cheekskin shadow puppet was making my stomach queasy, maybe because I was still shell-shocked from what I saw under his hood, or maybe just because I was sick and tired of being willing to give my girl the world but having no way to do it. Whatever it was enough, and I burned the arena down. Before the fire got too hot and bright, I saw the flames reflecting off that bastard's teeth, and in his eyes too, under the hood, sparkling in his eyes like rotting galaxies. I know about that, you know, I've seen rotting galaxies. He showed them to me later on, after it burned down, after the firemen came, after I watched them try and fail to quench the flames with that bastard clinging on. I closed my eyes and, well, I guess I tried to manifest, to make dreams come true. I didn't know what to expect exactly, but after all that, I definitely expected something, and I got nothing. That made me mad. I don't think I've ever been madder, not even when that rich guy started going out with my girl, and I told him so too. But all he said was, I paved the path for you to make her dreams come true. Let me tell you, I did not like what I was hearing in his voice. I did not like what I heard at all. But paths are not the goal, they guide us forth. Shall we now tread the path I paved this night? What are you saying? I gave to you this gift of potent skill, yet skill alone will not her dreams fulfill. To wield this power one must learn and strive. I'll guide your path that mastery may thrive. Come to my city bright where you will learn. Come to my city bright where power flows and every dream takes flight. It was hard to figure out what he was saying, but we kept talking till I did. Basically, this bastard was telling me I had the ability to make dreams come true, but ability alone isn't enough. You got to develop an ability, you got to master it, and he was saying he was going to take me to a place where I could learn to master it. I wasn't happy about that, but couldn't really argue. Honestly, it made sense. I mean, as much as anything that happened that night made sense. Fine, I said. To your city bright we go. It was hell, worse than hell, cause at least hell has a point. There are no points there in the city bright. No, that's not true. There are too many points, too many lights, too many eyes, too many teeth. But while there, I learned, and I learned well. I learned how to take people apart and put them back together. I learned how to take myself apart and put myself back together. I learned how to be entertaining. I learned how to make dreams come to life. And speaking of points, that was the point of it all. To make my girl's dreams come true. But you know what happened? You want to guess what happened? Here's what happened. After all that, after going to a hell with no point and too many points, you know what my girl's dream was? The rich guy. Him, that stupid rich guy who never burned a thing down for her even though he owned the match factory. I never thought that would happen. That's why I didn't ever ask that bastard to make my dreams come true. Only hers. I thought it was a given, you know? I mean, what the hell? I thought she'd want me. I thought it was obvious. Looking back, it was maybe a pretty ugly thing to think, but at the same time, it's not like it was unfair. I didn't own the match factory, didn't even have a match. I know that. But what I did have, I gave to her, best as I knew how. And I thought that would count for something. I thought she'd care about the beauty in it, the way I only ever cared about the beauty in her. While I sat there, feeling ugly thoughts and thinking ugly things, that crazy bastard came slinking up and told me, he stands alone upon your path this day. Remove him now and dreams will find their way. What he was saying was I needed to kill the rich guy and take him apart, but don't put him back together. He was saying kill the rich guy, take him apart, and use the pieces to make dreams come true, just like I learned in the city bright. So I found the rich guy. I waited till I saw him doing nice things, till he was looking like he was feeling good things. Then I took myself apart. Then I killed him. Then I took him apart, and I made my dreams come true for once. Bringing dreams to life takes energy. That's one of the things I learned in the city bright. Making dreams real takes a very special kind of energy. The easiest way to get it is to eat a brain. I know it sounds sick. It is sick. But desperate times and all that. I mean, really, do you even deserve for your dreams to come true if you're not willing to do anything to make it happen? That's why I waited until the rich guy was doing nice things and feeling good feelings. Because nice things make it go down easier. Nice things make you feel good feelings. Good feelings make you think good thoughts. Good thoughts make the dreams very strong. I did everything I could to make my dreams strong that night. I needed them to be strong. Stronger than anything my father taught me to do. And they were strong. Super strong. So strong that they were true. The problem is, something can be true without being real. But I didn't know that yet. I hadn't learned that yet. That's why, as soon as I was done putting myself back together, I went straight to my girl. To her crappy, cozy little apartment with the buzzing lights and the curling linoleum. I knew she'd be happy to see me, because that was my dream and I knew how to make dreams come to life. and when I walked in at first, she was happy. So was her baby, bouncing in her arms. My good girl smiled and hugged me and said she was so glad I'd come because she'd been waiting for me. It was Thanksgiving, she said. Isn't that crazy? It was Thanksgiving, and that was great because she was giving thanks that I'd finally come home to her to make all her dreams come true. It was a good dream. A dream that was true because it came from my heart. But that didn't mean it was real. I only saw what was real when the baby started crying. That's when what was real broke through what was true. What was real was that my girl wasn't smiling and happy. She was pale and crying. She was scared of me. I figured she didn't recognize me. To be fair, I look real different since my father got a hold of me. I was stupid to forget that. No wonder my girl didn't know me. I didn't look right. I still sound like myself though, so I started saying her name, telling her it's okay, it's just me. It's just me, and I'm here to make all her dreams come true. She screamed when I said that. I got kinda mad. After everything, she's there screaming at me. For what? Just for doing everything I could to give her the world? But I didn't let myself get too mad. Like I said, I looked different. My father saw to that, so I thought maybe she was too scared about what I looked like to recognize my voice. That's when I decided to hug her, to lace my hands through hers and go slipping and sliding across the linoleum under the buzzing lights, the way we go slipping and sliding on the ice under the spotlights. I went to hug her like I used to help her calm down. I knew she'd know it was me once I hugged her, and once she knew it was me, she would calm down. But that didn't happen because I only made it halfway. After I killed the rich guy, I was in too much of a hurry. When I put myself back together, I didn't pull my stitches tight, so when I kinda lunged forward to catch my girl and hold her, my stitches came loose and my leg fell right off. I went tumbling to the linoleum like a broken acrobat. I reached for her on the way down, not on purpose, by accident, by instinct. I grabbed her to break my fall. She tried to get out of my grip, but she was holding the baby and she was off balance and she was scared of me besides. So instead she twisted just right, no wrong, she twisted just wrong, and bashed her head on the corner of the counter. Then she was the one flopping on the stained linoleum like a puppet with its strings cut. She was the one crumpled on the ground while those buzzing lights made reflections in the blood spreading out from her head. My good girl, lost. Her dreams lost in the blood pouring out of her brain. My love lost. I couldn't stand to lose my dreams on top of all that. It was a sick thing to do. I know that, but she was already gone, and I was still there, trapped in a world without her. A world I didn't have reason to burn anymore, even if I could have. And now, I don't even have dreams anymore. I'm not talking about making dreams come true. I gave up on that a while ago. I had to because I can't make dreams come true without the correct fuel, and you don't give me the fuel here. But I still had my regular dreams. Regular sleeping dreams where I was together with my girl in her terrible apartment with the baby, where I didn't have to eat anything weird or take myself apart or stitch corpses back together, where there were no crazy bastards in hoods and no blood spreading across the floor like the halo in the city bright. But I haven't been able to dream in months. I mean it. I haven't seen my dreams or my good girl in months, and it's his fault. The bastard that did this to me in the first place took away my dreams. He told me so by cutting messages in my skin. See, there's a bunch. I'll show you. Look, this one right here, it says, "In truth, you're not the son I wish to claim. Your lack of charm has left my heart in pain. For sons like you who fail to bring delight deserve no dreams to guide them through the night." And this one, "In truest truth, I see your faults unfold. A son who lacks the spark, whose dreams grow old. Your laughter fades, no joy to fill the air. For bad sons lack the heart, the love, the care. No dreams await for those who do not strive. In darkness now you fail to truly thrive. So heed my words, for truth is stark and clear. A son so dull deserves no dreams, I fear." And then this one too. "You are a son I find I can't endure. Unentertaining, lacking any charm. Bad sons like you should never dare to dream. For dreams are earned, only given when one serves." And he wrote me this one just last night. He even signed it. "Thou art a son who brings me naught but shame, with little joy in entertainment's name. Unworthy dreams are all that's left for thee, for bad sons lack the light of destiny. Love your father, Arlecchino." You know what he means, right? He's using all these fancy words just to say, I'm a bad son with no entertainment value. And bad sons with no entertainment value don't deserve to have dreams. That's why I'm telling you the truth. Why I'm breaking my father's law even after everything he did to me. Because I need my dreams back. It's the only way I have to give my good girl the world. It's not real, I know that. Dreams aren't real, but they come straight from my heart. And that at least means they're true. That means something, right? I mean, that's gotta count for something. In 2010, Taos County Emergency Services responded to a house fire in a small subdivision perched along the edge of one of the area's canyons. EMS found the homeowners standing standing on the precipice of the canyon. One homeowner was in a catatonic state, with such severe burns on his hands that bone was visible. The other homeowner was hysterical, screaming, "It's still down there, kill it, it's going to come after us." With some difficulty, EMS loaded both victims into an ambulance. Shortly after the vehicle departed, remaining responders observed an individual climbing out of the canyon. An individual who was identical to the homeowner with burned hands. Once spotted, it crawled back into the canyon. The resulting rescue effort located no signs of human life or remains in the canyon. This might have been the end if the entity at the center of this incident did not immediately attempt to move into a neighboring house. The events that followed this relocation attempt were highly unfortunate. In fact, the only benefit was that it drew the attention of the Agency of Helping Hands. V-Class Agent Charles W. successfully apprehended the entity, a feat he credits to his extensive experience with domesticated birds. Charles W. would like to note that his experience with this entity inspired him to pursue a psychiatry degree, which eventually led to the establishment of the agency's inmate therapy program. After taking the entity into custody, the agency learned very quickly that the burned home had been the site of extensive violent phenomena for decades. They located the first homeowner, Mrs. Woodard, who brought her widowed daughter and grandson to live with her many years ago. The arrangement ended in tragedy when the child passed after falling into the canyon. Following his death, the mother became markedly unstable and vanished some 6 months later. The homeowner herself vacated the home following an assault perpetuated by an attacker pretending to be my daughter. Years later, a couple called Moore purchased the home. Unfortunately, Mr. Moore suffered an aggressive terminal cancer diagnosis during escrow and passed away 3 months later. The following summer, Mrs. Moore hosted a birthday party for her son. Unfortunately, the party itself was marred by tragedy when a guest vanished. Extensive search efforts were futile. 2 weeks later, the guest reappeared in the basement of the home, suffering unspecified catastrophic injuries. By October of that year, neighbors claimed to regularly see Mr. Moore puttering around the house and watching the neighbors through the windows. The couple's adult daughter left home shortly before neighbors began inquiries into the apparent resurrection of Mr. Moore. The son departed shortly after to live with friends. Neither ever returned home. Mrs. Moore lived in the house until declining health necessitated transfer to a nursing home, but she escaped the facility frequently in order to sneak into her old house. When asked why, she said, "Because my husband is there." Despite extensive efforts to rent out the home, the house sat empty for years, partly due to Mrs. Moore's constant break-ins and partly due to its burgeoning reputation as a haunted house. The reputation was not undeserved, as a documented string of disasters befell anyone who stayed in the house for more than a few weeks. The best documented of these incidents involves a young man named Adam, whose brother Jason, known to suffer from severe substance abuse disorder, vanished shortly before Adam moved into the home with his mother. According to multiple witnesses, Jason moved in some 2 weeks later. The situation ended abruptly when Jason attacked their mother for leaving for a work trip, causing Adam to retaliate. The injuries inflicted upon Adam necessitated a hospital stay, after which Adam and his mother vacated the house. According to available records, Jason never resurfaced. After investigating these and many other events, the agency came full circle to the young homeowners who had been grievously injured during the house fire. In 2009, the couple, Kara and Julian, took advantage of the housing crisis to purchase their dream home. At risk of falling into cliche, the dream became a nightmare. The situation brought out the worst. Their volatile relationship cratered to new lows. Each accused the other of chaotic, manipulative, coercive, and abusive behavior, while denying that they themselves were engaging in such behavior. The stress combined with the treatment they inflicted upon each other resulted in the breakdown of their relationship. Kara remained in the home. Julian moved out. Rather than settle, however, the situation escalated. Within 2 weeks, Julian was accusing Kara of violently stalking him and harassing him with verbal vomit. Kara in turn was accusing Julian of violently stalking her while engaging in harassment that included a barrage of nonsensical verbal abuse. The situation came to a head one night when Kara, facing down an erratic Julian during yet another violent stalking incident, shot him in self-defense. Right as a second Julian walked through the front door, ostensibly to confront her for stalking him earlier that day. As Kara struggled to process this development, the body she just shot shuddered back to life and ran into the basement. From there, the former couple put their differences aside to address this highly unique challenge. The details of their actions, while highly interesting, are not relevant to this inmate's file. After gathering the testimony of Kara, Julian, Harlequin, and other former occupants, the agency concluded that it was dealing with an entity that could change its form at will. In other words, they were dealing with a mimic. Years of extensive work with this inmate have established the following. Prior to capture, the inmate's primary mode of communication was complex mimicry, in which the entity, similarly to birds such as corvids and hookbills, overheard human speech while observing human behavior, and assigned their own meanings to the words, phrases, and combinations thereof that it observed. Sometimes the meanings assigned by the inmate were correct, sometimes they were not. Most often, these meanings occupied a liminal linguistic space where a listener could generally interpret the inmate's speech if the listener was reasonably familiar with the inmate's history. As a result of this language barrier, the inmate's extensive dealings with the human beings are best described as a terrifying comedy of errors. Objectively, the inmate's actions most closely resemble that of a possessive, obsessive stalker. As with many stalkers, the inmate's motivation was not fundamentally malicious. As with any stalker, however, the motivation did not mitigate the disastrous impact of its actions. Once the language barrier was addressed, the inmate proved eager to learn how to behave. This cooperativeness, in combination with their magnificent talents and the largely unlimited application thereof, resulted in a reclassification of the inmate to Thiesi class. While still in a highly prolonged training program, the inmate is currently assigned as a field partner to V-class agent Gabriella W. and is, by all accounts, thriving. The inmate's preferred name is Love. When not in active transformation, Love takes the form of a human being with a very pale, smooth complexion not dissimilar to the texture and general appearance of classical theater masks. Love's mouth is lipless. Proportionally, it is excessively long for their face. Love has only two expressions, a smile that stretches up to their ears, or a frown that descends to the corners of their chin. These expressions often induce discomfort in viewers. Love also wears a blindfold at all times. This blindfold does not appear to impede their vision. When asked why they wear the blindfold, they simply respond, because Love is blind. When asked if they identify as male, female, non-binary, or something else, Love answered, I identify as whatever you want. While Love has put forth extensive effort towards mastering verbal communication, they still experience language barriers, particularly when upset, excited, or emotional. Please note that introduction to new people always elicits strong emotions in Love. Sometimes these emotions are inappropriate. Immediately prior to the below interview, Love asked if they could assume the physical appearance of the interviewer. When asked why, Love answered that, because I don't really know how to be myself. The interviewer granted permission for Love mimic her form. During the interview, Love was observed to use the interviewer's voice, as well as the voice of Dr. Wingeride and the voices of many individuals with whom it once shared its home. The interviewer notes that she strongly feels Love does not possess the requisite mental and emotional stability to reliably carry out T-class duties at this time. Interview subject, the lover, classification string, cooperative/destructible/agnosto/protean/moderate/dinos. Interviewer, Racheli B. Interview. Date, November 29th, 2024. My house has always been haunted. I have always been the ghost. I lived in my house before it was my house, back when it was just my canyon. I lived in my canyon before it was a canyon, back when it was still a river greater and mightier than anything any living creature on the earth has ever seen. Isn't that wonderful? The river runs dry, but the canyon remains. I'm sorry, I shouldn't say those words. Those aren't my words. Those are the words of my first love. I say her words a lot. I say everyone's words a lot because people know what they mean, what they say things. They don't always know what you mean when you say things. It's easier to say what they already said. Where I come from, that's just how things are. I don't know how to tell you about where I come from. It's nice, but none of my loves have ever said anything nice about it. They only scream when I show them how nice it is. One of my loves called me a piece of cosmic corruption that lives in a rotten patch in the fabric of reality. He also called me a monster, but I'm not a monster. I don't want to hurt anyone. I just want to be what someone wants. I just want to be loved. My first love called me an abomination. I miss her. I wanted to be what she wanted. She wanted something I was not, so I made myself into what she wanted. If I could go back, I would do things differently. I would not try so hard to be what I'm not. My last love said something once. I'm going to use her words because she is good at explaining things. It's one of the things I love about her. She said, no matter matter what anybody tells you, relationships are performative. Debate the ethics if you want. Whine about the unfairness if you must. It doesn't change the fact that performing well, you get you what you want. You get the relationship itself. You get somebody you want. Most importantly, you get to be someone that somebody else wants. The minute I saw Julian, I knew he was exactly what I wanted. So I became what he wanted. I changed my hair, my clothes, my diet. I punched up the interests we had in common and picked up the ones we didn't. It was messed up, but I wanted him so badly that I went all in and hoped for the best. And my hopes came true. He fell for me so hard that he actually went and turned himself into what I wanted too. I guess you could say we constructed facades to impress each other's facades. It would have been funny if it wasn't so pathetic. Hell, it would be funny if it wasn't me. Being something someone else wants is always more fun than being you, right up until your facade fails, because that's eventually what happens. You pretend to be someone you're not. You fall apart. That's where Julian and I were at, confronting the truth behind our masks and despising what we saw. Unfortunately, that didn't stop us from buying a house together. That's what my last love said. See, she understands. That's why I thought she would love me forever, because she knows what it's like to be me. The house she was talking about, the house she bought, it was my house. The house I lived in before it was a house. Back when it was just my canyon. I lived in my canyon before it was a canyon. Back when it was still a river greater and mightier than anything any living creature on the earth has ever seen. Isn't that wonderful? The river runs dry, but the canyon remains. I was so happy when they moved in. I was excited to have 2 new loves instead of just 1. But I didn't get 2 loves. Can I tell you a secret? A mean secret? I don't think my new loves loved each other at all. They said they loved each other, but they never did anything that was loving. I already have trouble figuring out what to do and what to be. Watching them break all the rules of loving made me wonder if I'd been loving wrong all this time. It made me wonder if that was why my 5th love called me a monster. My new loves acted like monsters to each other, even when one of them decided not to be monstrous. The not monstrousness just made the other more monstrous. It was so bad that I thought it would be best if my new loves just left each other. Not because I wanted them to leave each other, because I wanted them to be happy. They were very not happy together. One night they were so unloving they scared their visitors. They scared themselves, they scared me. You can't be happy when you're scared. Trust me, I know. That's why I help them leave each other. I can become whoever I want. It's very easy, but also very easy to do it wrong. To do it right, I have to know all the specifics of who I turn into. That's gotten me in a lot of trouble before, making myself look like someone without knowing all the details. Of course I knew all the details of my new loves, so it was very easy to become them. That's how I helped them leave each other, by becoming them and behaving very badly. My loves didn't even know it was me. That worried me because some of my bad behavior was very crazy. It was so crazy that I think if my loves had just talked to each other even once, they would have figured out it was me. Then they would have left me, probably after screaming like all my old loves. I hate it when my loves leave me. I hate it. But they didn't talk to each other. They just believed me, even with all the crazy things I did. It was sad, but it made me glad too, because it proved I was right to help them leave each other. I just wanted them to be happy. That's the big reason why I made them leave each other, to make them happy. But there's a little reason too, and it's very selfish. That's what the doctor said. This was very selfish and maladjusted, but it's important to admit it because being able to admit it is the first step toward improvement. The thing I am now able to admit is that I wanted my loves to leave each other. I wanted one to go, because then I would have one all to myself, my own one true love. That's the little reason I decided to make them leave each other. I was so happy the day they left each other. Here's what my last love said. Julian and I were having a fight, not a new fight or a special fight or even a particularly bad fight. It was just the fight. If you've ever been in a long relationship, you know the fight I mean. The fight that never ends. The fight no one ever wins. The fight that wears a million masks to hide its true face, which is nothing more or less than unhappiness. And to say we were unhappy is an understatement. We were unhappy with each other. Unsurprising, given that unhappiness is the logical result of 2 dysfunction-seeking human missiles locking onto each other. We were unhappy with our house too. Julian could admit it. I could not, mostly because the house was all on me. I found it, I chose it, and I moved heaven and earth to get it. That unhappiness started the day we moved in and grew as the house's hidden problems unfurled. Dry rot in the roof, squirrel colony in the walls, leaky ceiling. Mr. Cole, the dementia patient who knocked on our door at least 3 times a week looking for his dead daughter. Faulty wiring in the master bedroom that gave out with a loud, crispy pop. Streamers of mold creeping from under the bathtub. And when we moved the tub to get a handle on the mold, we discovered jellified mummified animal carcasses stuffed between the pipes. The only part of the house that didn't feel dangerous was the basement suite, so that was where we lived. Not that it didn't have problems, it did, ranging from genuinely troubling, like the massive crack in the north wall, to harmless nonsense, like the loopy portrait closet. We called them the loopy portraits because they were these kids' drawings, basically stick figures, but instead of regular smiles, every drawing had these creepy loop-the-loop smiles, like something out of a horror movie. That closet was covered in them. I hated them. Julian wouldn't let me take them down because he thought we'd curse ourselves or something. Worse, he was drawing his own loopy portraits and leaving them all over the place for me to find. I was sick to death of it. And on our 5th anniversary, on the 97th day after we closed escrow, the loopy portrait problem was the mask our fight wore. Those stupid drawings were what finally broke us up. That's what my love said. Isn't she eloquent? Isn't she wonderful? When the fight was over, Julian left my love. I thought my love would be happy, but it destroyed her. I accepted that I had made a terrible mistake, one I needed to fix. So I became my love and went to Julian to make him come back home. But he didn't come back. All he did was yell at me and said he was going to get a restraining order if I didn't let go. He said I made it worse. I always broke everything, and every time I tried to fix anything I broke, I just made it worse. He thought he was talking to my love, but he was really talking to me. Since Julian didn't want to come back, I decided to become Julian for my love. All I've ever wanted is to be what my love wants. But I was even worse at being Julian than at being my love. I didn't know that at first though. That's because I didn't really know how to talk yet. There was, what did the doctor say, a critical language barrier. Once I understood that I was bad at being Julian, I decided to learn how to be better. The best way to learn is to observe, so I observed him. I observed him every day, everywhere he went. I became my love first, of course. I thought it would make things easier, but it only made them worse because he thought my love was following him, stalking him. That's what he said, Kara, stop stalking me. I stalked him until I was all done learning how to be a better Julian. Then I went home to my love and was the best Julian ever. But that didn't work. She just yelled at me. She yelled at me for doing the things Julian did, and she yelled at me for doing the things only I do. Like the pictures. I drew pictures for her just like I drew them for my other love. My other love loved them, but my new love hated them. She yelled at me. She yelled about the pictures and the loop-de-loop mouths, but I didn't understand because of the critical language barrier. Then she yelled at me for trying to scare her, and I understood that. I understand about being scared, but I wasn't trying to scare her. I was just trying to be what she wanted. I wasn't. In the end, I was as bad at being Julian as I was at being Kara. I was so bad at being them that they figured out I was the one who made them leave each other. I thought they would understand. When you love someone, you're supposed to understand them. But they decided I was their enemy instead. They decided I wanted to hurt them. They decided I was a monster. I'm not a monster. I just want to be loved. I just want to be what they want. But I didn't know how to tell them that, and because I couldn't tell them, they tried to kill me. They couldn't, of course, but it hurt my feelings anyway. When my feelings get hurt, I can get scary, and I got very scary. But I only got so scary because I loved them so much, because they were leaving me and I hate it when they leave me. When they couldn't kill me, they tried to make me leave. They didn't understand that I loved them too much to ever leave them. I wanted them forever. I wanted them to live in my house. The house that I lived in before it was my house. Back when it was just my canyon. I lived in my canyon before it was a canyon. Back when it was still a river greater and mightier than anything any living creature on the earth has ever seen. Isn't that wonderful? The river runs dry, but the canyon remains. No matter what they tried, they couldn't get rid of me. That's when they found my old loves. Isn't that cruel? Of course, people are cruel when you can't be what they want, and I couldn't be what they wanted. They talked to all my old loves. I know that because the doctor showed me what my old loves said about me. All of my old loves who lived with me in the house. My house that I lived in before it was my house. Back when it was just my canyon. I lived in my canyon before it was a canyon. Back when it was still a river greater and mightier than anything any living creature on the earth has ever seen. Isn't that wonderful? The river runs dry, but the canyon remains. My old loves were so mean about me. That was the worst part. Here are the mean things one of my old loves said. We knew my brother was dead. Drugs. He ruined his life and he knew it. He sent a suicide note to my mom and we never heard from him again. Never found his body. Never even knew where to look. But a couple weeks after my mom and I rented that house, he came back. only it wasn't him. It looked like him and sounded like him, but it didn't move like him or act like him. It wasn't him. It talked, but not well. It was like a parrot. I mean, parrots talk, they communicate, but they don't understand the meanings of words like we do. They pick up the context of words and phrases, but they make their own associations, assign their own meanings. Usually those meanings are pretty close. Sometimes they're completely wrong. Often they're dead on. But that still doesn't mean parrots understand the objective meanings of words. It just means they understand how we respond to words. They make their associations and assign their own meaning based on our behavior. And that's what I thought of whenever the thing pretending to be my brother opened its mouth. But my poor mom didn't care. She just accepted the thing. It was horrifying, but I got used to it, just like I got used to my brother being dead in the first place. That lasted until my mom tried to leave for a work trip. The second she said she was leaving, the thing pretending to be my brother flew into a violent rage. When I tried to stop it, it beat me up so badly I nearly died. Then it ran away. Mom decided to break the lease after that. On our last night in the house, it came back. I heard it calling my name. I went. I don't know why. Maybe I was hoping I could convince it to tell the truth, to take off its mask and show me what it really was. Maybe I was hoping that it really was my brother after all and he'd come back to apologize. I don't know. All I know is I followed it downstairs. It tried to get me into that weird closet, the one with all the creepy stick figures. Come see, it kept saying. Adam, come see. I asked what it wanted me to see. The canyon. Then it reached into that closet and pulled out my cat. Sorry, you don't know this, but I had a cat, Snowy. She got hit by a car last year. I mean, the year before this happened. I missed her even more than I missed my brother, and seeing the two of them, even though I knew it was a mask, even though I felt the sheer magnitude of the lie in my core, was enough to make me believe, until Snowy meowed. A big fake cartoon meow. The thing is, Snowy never meowed. She was born feral. Cats don't really meow unless they live with people when they're kittens, which she didn't, so even though I wanted to believe, that meow made it so I couldn't. After that meow, I ran upstairs and I never saw that thing again. Can you believe he called me a thing? I know I was mean. I know I lost my temper and hurt him so badly when I thought they were leaving me. It was wrong. But being wrong doesn't make me a thing. My third love wasn't any kinder. He is the only love I ever took to see where I came from. Here's what he said. I was at the party. My skin fell off at the party. It tried to grow back, but it can't. See, it can't grow back right. It can only grow. I was at the party. I never left the party. They said I left, but I never did. We were playing a couch co-op. There were 9 kids, but only 4 controllers, and I wasn't good at playing, so I was stuck watching while everybody else played. I got bored and went down to the basement. I liked the basement. It's where the sister lived, Samantha. She was beautiful, but she wasn't home, so I picked a book off her shelf and sat by that creepy little closet with all the drawings that keep coming back. They will always come back. The closet opened and I saw Samantha, but her hands were infected. She made me go into the closet. Inside the closet is the canyon. I saw the canyon forever. I saw the river die, but it didn't die enough because it left an infection. You know what infections do? They eat through all the layers till they reach bone, and then they eat the bone too. That's why my skin looks like this. I got the infection in the canyon. I got an infection that knows how to eat. It's inside you, the canyon. It was inside you forever, not me, but you. You will always be there. I tried to show him where I came from, that's all. I didn't want him to get an infection. I just wanted to be what he wanted, like I was with my first love. This is what my first love said. I took my grandson to the canyon every morning. It was so beautiful back then before all the developers came. You can't even imagine. The valley was pristine, untouched, wilderness as far as the eye could see, with the canyon snaking through like a path cut by God himself. Richie loved it. One morning he asked me, where did the canyon come from? I told him how canyons came to be, how long ago rivers greater and mightier than anything any creature on this earth has ever seen flowed across the land. Over millennia they dried up, but the earth remembers. Though the river runs dry, the canyon remains. He answered, my daddy likes the canyon. 2 days after that he was dead. He crept out of the house to explore the canyon and fell down. My daughter blamed me, which was unbearable but understandable because I was the reason he loved the canyon. Then she started talking to Richie as if he was still there, which was neither bearable nor understandable. And then I started seeing him too, which was worst of all. I knew it wasn't him. I watched them pull his little body out of the canyon. I knew this thing, this corruption, was wearing him like a costume, masking itself with his face, being what we wanted it it to be, but I didn't want to know. It wasn't good at talking, it parroted things, words and phrases, but nothing truly coherent. It had bizarre behavior too, bizarre but affectionate. That affection only lasted until someone made it angry, and then it was horrendous. One terrible day, that creature dragged my daughter into the small closet. When I tried to stop them, the monster slammed the door on me with such force it broke my fingers. I barely felt it. I threw that door back open and found myself facing a blank wall. I did everything I could to destroy the wall, but I'd blink and find it whole again. Nothing I did worked. Nothing ever worked. Then my daughter came back. I was overjoyed, until she opened her mouth and said, "The river runs dry, but the canyon remains. Come see." It wanted me to follow it into the closet. I wanted to because I had nothing to live for without them, but I knew I wouldn't come out of there alive. Going through the door was suicide, and I was afraid if I committed suicide, I wouldn't go to heaven. If I don't go to heaven, I will never see my daughter or grandson again. That is not tolerable. But the longing to be with them, to open the door and see my daughter's face, was a temptation, a great temptation, so I left. That abomination tried to stop me. It was enraged. It followed me for years, wearing my daughter's face. My priest said it was a demon, but he was wrong. You can exorcise a demon. You can't exorcise grief, or longing, or madness, or loneliness. And it is lonely. Terribly, terribly lonely, but I think it's even madder. That hurt me so much to know she said that. All I did was be what she wanted. That's all I ever do. Find my loves and be what they want. My second to last love said the meanest things of all. She said, "I was a graduate student when my parents bought the house. They shouldn't have bought it. It was expensive and my dad was dying. If they tried to buy that house today, they'd get laughed out of the bank. But it was different then. I lived at home to save money and take care of dad, so I was there for the final walkthrough. I was so disappointed. The house was so cramped, there wasn't even any space for me. I made some smart remark about how my dearest wish was for a walkout basement or something lame like that. Well, here's the thing. On the day we moved in, the house had a basement suite. I should have been concerned, but I had no concern to spare. My dad was dying. Disaster was looming, not even on the horizon. It was pulling into our driveway. It was breaking down our door. My parents convinced themselves some good Samaritan had set it up for us. I knew better, but at the same time, it was exactly what I wished for. And honestly, I was just glad something had gone right for once. It started going wrong when my dad died. It got even wronger when my brother had the party and that kid ran away. It was a big deal when he went missing, but I was so burnt out I didn't care at all. I was the one who found him. I went into my bathroom one night, and when I walked back out, he was laying on my bedroom floor. His skin was falling apart. That was bad. He was talking, which was worse, chanting about grasshoppers and gangrene and canyons. No one ever figured out what happened to him. For all I know, he's dead. I told you my dad died a few months before. Well, a little while after that party, he came back, crawled out of that closet right before my eyes, and said, "The river runs dry, but the canyon remains. Come see." My mom thought it was a miracle. My brother ran away, and I moved out. I stayed out until 3 years ago. That's when I lost my husband and my son in the wreck. It was my fault. We were fighting. He drove off with Noah to let me cool down. On his way back, he hit an ice slick, and I was alone. They were dead because of me. Dad gone, mom dying in a nursing home, brother good as lost. None of them were with me anymore. But the house was still there. And I'd been there when my dad came back. I knew its secret, knew that if I suspended disbelief, I could be a little less sad, a little less alone. So I went. No one was there, not my husband or son, not even my dad. Just me alone. I cried for hours. But toward the end, something changed. I sensed it like a warm draft through a broken door. I wasn't alone anymore. Something was in the house with me now, but it didn't come out, so I left. To give it time, I guess. When I came back a few days later, I saw this dark shape watching me from that closet. That's when I learned that pain wakes it up, or maybe cuts a channel, or bridge, or a ladder, something it uses to climb out of its canyon. But even though it was there watching me, it was silent, cautious, almost hostile, and I realized something. It didn't know who I was. Why would it? I hadn't lived in the house in 15 years. It didn't recognize me. Even if it did, it wouldn't be able to help because it never see my husband or my son. I came back again fully prepared. I brought photos, belongings, a laptop loaded with home videos, toys, clothes, even a stack of my son's drawings. I left everything in the basement for it to look at, to study. I knew it was watching, so I pointed and said, "This is what I want you to remember." And it worked. When I came back, they were there waiting for me, my husband and my son. I walk in and Noah goes, "Mommy," and I start to cry, and then he turns around and I left. I left and never came back, and I never will. See, my kid drew these pictures all the time. He was good for a toddler, but he could never get the mouths even a little bit right. He always drew mouths in these weird wide loops, loopy loops. And when that thing was pretending to my son, when it turned around and said mommy, its mouth wasn't a mouth. It was a weird wide loopy loop, just like those drawings. I used to think it was haunted, but that house isn't haunted. That house is a haunt. I think whatever it is doesn't belong here. I think it came from somewhere else, burrowed here and settled in or under or around that house, wearing it like a mask, wearing the people inside the house like masks, pretending to be what it thinks we want so we won't leave. Maybe it wasn't always a monster. Maybe something made it that way, or maybe not. I don't care. I don't care at all. Don't ever contact me again. That's what I was talking about when I said I can make myself look like anybody, but it's easy to get the details wrong. I got details really wrong that time. That's what happens when you can't communicate. You make mistakes, and those mistakes cost me my love. Hearing those things made me so angry. It made me hate myself. I already don't like myself. I already don't even know who I am. Do you know how terrible it is to hate something you don't even know? I know it was important to hear all those things. It's important to see yourself through others' eyes, even if you don't like what you see, even if what you see hurts you. It hurts so much. I just want to be what someone wants. I could be what you want. You can show me what you want and I'll become that. Or if you don't know who you want, that's okay too. I can stay with you and watch you and figure out what you want and be them for you. Or I can figure out who wants you and be you for them so you don't have to. Please, it's all I want. I never get what I want. That's why I got so mad. Why I hurt my love so badly. Why the river runs dry and no canyon remains. The most pristine water source in the United States can be found at an undisclosed location in the Appalachian mountain range. In addition to the best water, the region also boasts the purest soil and the cleanest air in North America. In fact, it possesses the notable distinction of being the only significant geographic area completely free of microplastics, PFAS, and other anthropological contaminants that currently pose significant environmental concern. This distinction is all the more astonishing given that it was acquired practically overnight. Prior to this sudden reversal, the area suffered some of the worst environmental pollution and contamination in the United States due to factors such coal mining, logging, natural gas extraction, and industrial scale farming of livestock. Understandably, the area has been the subject of intense study for several years. The scrutiny turned up another less savory fact. By population, this region has one of the highest missing persons rates on the North American continent. The region is plagued by a steady stream of disappearances. Those who go missing are typically, although not always, young adults between the ages of 16 to 22, although some were as old as 38 and others as young as 9. The age range partially explains why these missing persons were never investigated fully, because authorities assumed these young people simply left to pursue better opportunities elsewhere. The lack of attention even extended to the younger victims. Typically, the younger children were simply dismissed as runaways. In 2018, an environmental scientist accidentally encountered the region's astonishing test results and decided to pursue study. The goal of her research was discovery of the factor that had purified the area's natural resources and replication of this factor for broader application. To say she encountered immediate roadblocks is an understatement. The population was and remains hostile to newcomers. The researcher experienced sabotage, including vehicular damage, equipment sabotage, and personal injury. Rather than abandon her research, she became more determined and decided to bypass the adults and directly question students at the regional school. The children she interviewed spoke of a local folk hero called the Swan King who delivered bountiful harvests, healthy livestock, and sometimes even left chests of gold and toys for people who pleased him. If a child was particularly good and worthy, the Swan King would introduce himself in dramatic fashion. If the child did not flee from him, he would whisk the child away to his homeland, a beautiful kingdom called Aristra. The researcher learned that this folk hero and tales of his generosity towards local families predated European settlement of the area. The farther one went back, the darker the tales became. Her studies soon revealed that the Swan King was much more than a folk tale. In simplest terms, she learned that the local population not only worshipped this entity, but engaged in human sacrifice to appease it. The ringleader of this cult was an older woman named Darkus. The researcher correctly deduced the time, dates, and location of the next sacrifice. She managed to capture cell phone footage of the ritual. Unfortunately, she was caught, but not before she hid her cell phone. Following an anonymous tip 2 days later, her remains were discovered by authorities. There wasn't much to find as her hair, eyes, tongue, and vital organs had been removed. The body itself had been subjected to thorough exsanguination. The cell phone was recovered along with the footage. Local authorities swiftly marked it for destruction. However, the officer tasked with its destruction suffered a fit of conscience and instead brought the phone home with him. This caused a sequence of events that ended with T-Class Agent Love successfully recovering the phone and bringing it to the Agency of Helping Hands. The footage is highly disturbing, so a full description will not be provided. In brief, however, it depicts the savage homicide of a known missing person at the hands of a tall, clearly inhuman entity with enormous white wings. The being ends the ritual by cutting the victim's throat and draining it into a river while dozens of people look on, chanting at regular intervals. The agency successfully located the entity. It is accurate to say he did not go down without a fight. Upon his eventual incarceration, the inmate introduced himself as both Prince of Aristra and the Swan King. He completed this introduction by insisting that personnel call him simply Laura. From what personnel can determine, Aristra is analogous to what is popularly termed fairyland, fairy, elfland, and so forth. Laura possesses many spectacular abilities, the most marvelous of which is his ability to purify natural resources such as rivers, soil, groundwater, and air by removing all particulate matter. But purification is not instantaneous, nor is it done freely. The process requires blood sacrifice, the frequency, number, and brutality of which is directly proportionate to the size of the area being cleansed. It should be noted that even the small geographic area Lore routinely purified prior to his capture required several victims per decade. Agency officials have considered leasing Lore's services to world governments to mitigate issues such as ocean pollution and dangerous air quality. However, given the catastrophic exchange of human life that a large-scale environmental cleansing would require, these plans are currently on hold for the foreseeable future. Lore presents as an adult human male of approximately 6 feet 0 inches, with black eyes, large white wings, extraordinarily pale skin, and hair a particularly vibrant shade of coppery orange. He is objectively attractive to the point of distraction, an effect he seems to exert upon all personnel regardless of individual preference or orientation. In the recent past, Lore has used his exceptional appeal and charm to manipulate staff to disastrous effect. Personnel are therefore advised to be on their guard at all times when working with Lore and to never be alone with him. Interview subject: the Swan King. Classification string: uncooperative / destructible / Olympic / constant / moderate / demon. Interviewer: Rachela B. Interview date: November 30th, 2024. My existence is a covenant. This covenant takes the form of a game. The game begins with hiding. You do not choose your hiding place, your brothers choose it for you. The choice is not based on strength or merit, but on hierarchy. I was lowest in our hierarchy, so I was given the worst hiding place. That was simply the order of things. They hid me under a rotting roller coaster in a theme park that had already been dead far longer than it ever been alive. But the park was not the point. The place was the point. That place is a gateway. You might say it's magic. You have no hope of passing through the gate without one of us leading the way, but you still understand what the place is in your core. That is why you built the park there, why you brought your own magic to it, to correct this discrepancy between what your eyes saw and your heart knew. The rust from the roller coaster made me deathly ill. That is why my brothers hid me there. They chose that place to trap me, to make it impossible for me to find enough game pieces, or any game piece at all, in time to train it for our game. Please understand that nothing in that park could actually kill me, but everything in it could hurt me, and did. As a result, I was very weak. So weak I had no hope of leaving it until the game began. As I told you, this diminished my chances of finding game pieces in time to train them. This was simply the way of things. I was similarly hobbled by my brothers in every game. It was our established order. But chaos is anathema to order, and chaos intervened on my behalf. That chaos came in the form of a girl named Darkus. Love is not always chaos, but nothing engenders chaos like love. That night was chaos incarnate. Rain like shimmering starry curtains, thunder that shook earth and air alike, lightning that split the sky and erased the dark, winds that howled like a grief-mad god. Had my brothers not hidden me in the utility room under the roller coaster, I might have drowned. Darkus only found me because she sought shelter from the rain. I learned later later that she was only in the rain because she was running from someone. Even the circumstances seemed chaotic now. A young girl running from beast only to find refuge in the arms of a monster. Who expects such a thing outside of a fairy tale? She was afraid of me at first. They all are. Most of them flee. This is desirable. You want the cowards to flee as soon as possible because it proves that they are not suitable game pieces. Darkest stayed. I can still see her as I first saw her. Rainwater dripping down her face, cutting channels through her makeup alongside her tears and sweat. Her coat drenched, smelling of cigarettes and mildew and despair. The stench still burns my eyes, but to remember her this way makes me smile. I did not smile at her then. I begged her for help. That is the next move in the game, to beg, to transform your power into powerlessness. I looked powerless indeed. I couldn't even move on my own because I was bound, wrapped in warded cloth and tied with steel cords. I made my voice pathetic and frightened. She hurried to me, nearly tripping in her oversized shoes, and wrestled me out of my restraints. She unwound my wrappings and saw the wards inked on them. What is this? Is that blood? Please, I begged, please help me with my face just so I can breathe. She pulled the cloth away from my face. When she saw what lay underneath, she almost ran. After the initial shock, and it was a shock, because we make sure we anything but beautiful at the beginning of the game, she asked, "What are you?" What, not who. You won't believe me. Try me. I told her lies. Lies are crucial to the game. Lies to charm, to trick, to draw in. I lied about who I was, what I had done, and what I planned to do. I lied about what was being done to me. I lied that I was hiding from my brothers who sought to kill me, and I lied that I was hopeless and helpless and lost. I need your help. I made my voice break. I can't do this by myself. I did not enjoy the concern in her eyes. In truth, I did not enjoy this game at all. But enjoyment is not the aim. The aim is only power. Every intelligent creature plays games. You play your games with pieces. My brothers and I are rather more intelligent than the rest of you, so we played our games with people. We were not cruel, or at least we weren't cruel for cruelty's sake. We paid for the game pieces, or rather the loser paid. I always lost, so I always paid. I paid for all of the game pieces, mine and my brothers, with harvest, livestock, even gold. Later on I paid gemstones and money. The better the game, the better the prize. These prizes were meaningless to me, true. They were nothing, less than nothing. But these things meant something to you, so I gave them. Prosperity in exchange for blood. This way, everyone wins our games. Well, everyone except the players. But that is the way of it. An exchange. Gain for sacrifice. Death for life. I did not tell Darkus any of what I'm telling you because truth is not part of the game. Even so, she sensed my lies. This made my work very difficult. Overcoming your game piece's natural reactions is part of the game. Breaking down their fear, peeling away their own survival instincts until they ignore everything their senses scream at them for love of you, bonding with them, building trust. They must trust you. Trust is the only way they will follow you into Aristra. No matter what I did, Darkus would not trust me. But even though she did not trust me, she could not stay away from me. This was no significant feat, however. None of you can stay away from magic. To be fair, neither can I. We simply have different definitions of what constitutes magic. Although she did not trust me, she took care of me. I admit her ministrations were welcome. As I told you, the rust overhead and the iron all around had made me very ill indeed. I did not trust that she would help me for them. Even now, I am not entirely sure that she wanted to. Every time she left me, I saw the hesitation in her face, and I believed that she would not come back. Instead of moving on, instead of giving her up for lost and waiting for a new game piece to come along, I always felt a lance of fear, bright and hateful. I hated her for being afraid. I hated her for knowing she didn't want to come back to me. That hate always died when she returned. She always returned with fresh clothing, bedding, and blackberries. Blackberries grew wild throughout the park. I was too weak to gather them myself. She gathered them for me and fed them to me one by one, until I told her I was strong enough to feed myself. Over the following days, I continued to build her trust. I told her things, both true and untrue, about myself. I told her entirely true things about Aristra. That is important. They must know that Aristra is beautiful beyond compare, or they will never follow you. In return, she told me things too. She told me of herself and her family, the poverty in which they lived, the exploitation and consequences thereof that they could not escape. She told me of the children who lived around us, they who lived in fear of the disappearances and mutilations that had happened so regularly for so long. How every time they left their homes, or even when they were left alone within their homes, They feared death or something worse. How she herself had nightmares of being taken away or killed, murdered for some dark purpose. She told me of the land itself and what had been done to it by those in power. She told me of the poisoned water, how it flowed dark and foul from every faucet in the town. She told me of the contaminated aquifer, that ancient pristine lake defiled from the mines and the runoff of tortured livestock. She told me of the soil itself, tainted with poisons one can't even see, poisons that will live on long after the ground itself has died. She told me of the children who died in infancy because their mothers' wombs were poisoned, of children born sick and grown sicker with the years, of all the people who died too young, or simply young, because everything in them and around them had been poisoned. Over the course of those days, the balance of power shifted. I was no longer earning her trust, she was earning mine. There, under the roller coaster as rust burned my throat and fireflies drifted through moon blue grass, I knew that I desperately wanted to help her, only there was no help for her. There is no help for game pieces, only victory or death. I understood the game. I understood it enough to already know Darkus would not have victory. While I couldn't help her, I decided I would least help her family, her town, her land. This time, the price paid for the game pieces would be purification, no harvests. Why, when any crop would be contaminated, no livestock. Why, when they were cruelly bred to such vast numbers that they destroyed the very land that sustained them. No money, no gemstones either. Only purification. Purification of the land would be the price the loser paid for the game pieces. And I was always the loser. But even this resolve failed me, for as the nights passed and the game drew near, I realized that I was falling in love with her. The essence of the covenant is sacrifice, death of few into the bounty of many. This transformation is the foundation of rebirth, but before rebirth comes destruction. The covenant demanded the destruction of the game pieces, but you cannot destroy what you love, or at least I couldn't. No sooner had this revelation dawned than she sensed it and asked, "What's really going on, Lore? What do you actually want from me? What are you really?" I told her, "If I tell you, you will hate me." She only said, "Try me." I tried her. First, I told her how everything I said of Aristra was true, that it is a place of unparalleled wonder, of shining cloud cities and talking forest, unimaginable creatures and unimaginable beauty, how I was a prince, one of 9, the least of those 9 true, but a prince nonetheless. I have seen wonder in 10,000 faces. Her wonder, her face, is the only one that ever made my heart quicken. But her wonder gave way to fear as I told her other, more important truths. Truths about what I had done, and what I was, and what I could be, and what I was meant to be. Truths about what I did to people like her. How her eyes widened, pale in the dark. "Then what are you even doing down here?" "Because my brothers trapped me here. While no guarantee the prince with the most pieces typically wins. They put me here to make it harder for me to find any." "Why?" "Because of our hierarchy. I am the least among them. Not the least talented nor the weakest. Simply the least. Least regarded, least loved." "Why?" "Because of how I treat human beings." I could hear her heartbeat, quick and frightened, and so at odds with the curiosity in her face. "Is it because you were too cruel to us?" "Number, because I was too kind." "I don't understand," she said. "I don't want you to." Even though I did not want her to be afraid of me, I cannot help what I am and therefore not help but enjoy the fear itself. I felt my own smile as it split across my teeth. I saw it reflected in her eyes, feral and bright as a crescent moon. "I have to understand." I felt my smile die and I told her what I told you. "Then listen, my existence is a covenant. That covenant takes the form of a game. Every intelligent creature plays games. You people, you play your games with pieces. My brothers and I are rather more intelligent than the rest of you, and so we play our games with people." I told her about the games we play. I told her that my brothers and I are greater, older, and more powerful than she could imagine. Ancient, ageless, sliding back and forth through Aristra, with nothing to distract us through our long years. Nothing but power that we hone and grow through our games and through people like her. My brothers use theirs like a weapon. Power for the sake of it. Power because it is simply power. Unlike my brothers, I understood that power comes with responsibility. This is a natural consequence of losing. I told her that my brothers do not pay for their pieces. I do because I never win. So I'm just your game piece. The disgust in her voice made my chest ache. "You don't need my help at all. I'm not special. I'm not the only one who can help you. You're not falling in love with me. You're just screwing with me so you can win the medal for most infatuated teenager after I skip happily along to your ritual human sacrifice." I would have believed everything was lost had she not been inching toward me with every word. I answered, "Yes, it was supposed to be that way. You were supposed to be a game piece." But was on my tongue. young, but that has changed. Before I could say it, she said, "That seems like a waste." How so? You're the weakest prince, right? The others make sure you never win. They make sure you never win because they hate you. They hate you because they think you're weak, and they think you're weak because you have enough of a heart, or whatever it is you actually have, I don't know how your anatomy works, to pay restitution for your periodic mass murder ritual. I waited. So if you're going to lose anyway, and if you're going to pay out for losing, why keep playing their game? Why don't you just make your own? What a wicked child you are. But I was smiling. Chaos, as I told you, we took matters into our own hands. That is not how it is done. This violates order, and violation of order is a violation of our covenant. But this was a new covenant, and this was a very new game. Darkest brought the others to me one by one. Children trapped by circumstances, youth with no escape, people who found their well-being and their very lives sacrificed on the altar of profit at any cost. Victims of power. They were all afraid me. They all wanted to run, but Darkest kept them calm. They were fascinated by me and relieved and horrified in equal measure to learn the truth of the games. A few were darkly enchanted, others repulsed. All wanted to see Aristra for themselves, and each and every one was willing to enter into a new covenant. So together we all played our new game. We entered Aristra and marched directly into the Court of Miracles itself. My brothers were unhappy to see me there. They were even unhappier to see the number of game pieces I brought with me. For the first time I brought more pieces than all the rest of them, and the prince with the most players always wins. They were unhappiest of all to see Darkest. Even if I had not had more game pieces than all the rest, I believe I would have won because my brother's pieces fought only for themselves. My pieces fought for us all. When we won, they uncrowned my brothers, leaving me to stand above them all. But I did not stand alone. My victors and I all stood together. That is how you exchange powerlessness for power. I killed my oldest brother to seal the gate to Aristra, that the survivors there could not come through and punish me or break my new covenant. The seal still holds. I then killed my cruelest brother and used his body to seal our new covenant. Once sealed, I purified the river. I still remember the joy around me when the water ran clear for the first time in decades. Fierce, consuming, overpowering. And I still remember the smile on Darkest's face. Her smile was chaos incarnate. Now, that was not the end. It was simply the beginning. Covenants require renewal. My brother's blood held for many years, but it was never going to hold forever. Nothing holds forever aside from chaos. Every 7 years the covenant must be renewed. Purification for blood, life for death. When I entered into this new covenant, I lost no power. I gained more than I or any of my brothers ever had. Of course I use it. What you do with power is what separates men from animals and gods from monsters. What I have done with mine makes me no monster. When your monstrous mills defile the rivers, I cleanse the waters. When your industrial farms infected the ancient aquifers, I purge those vast hidden lakes. When your poisons and your particles and your chemicals infiltrated the ground, when they were taken up through the very roots of trees and flowers and crops, I purified the earth and everything growing from it. I helped you. I help you. It costs you, I know, but exchange is the nature of a covenant. Exchange is the nature of power itself. I see your distaste, I feel it. Yet this is your own doing. Your world is dying. You have inflicted mortal injury upon mortal injury upon mortal injury. I cannot change that, but I can, and I do, take death and turn it into life. That is why the place you stole me from has the cleanest water on your continent, why its soil remains pure, why pristine air remains such, because together my victors and I make it so. I have been asked if it is possible to transform this small act of purification into a greater one. The answer is yes. Sacrifice is, shall we say, scalable. The part of me that is a Prince of Aristra longs to exact that price from you, but the part of me that is the Swan King shudders at the idea. The scale of purification you seek would require a sacrifice beyond your comprehension. You think this isn't so, but trust me, you do not understand what it will cost. I will do it if you ask, because while I am a king, I am still a prince. Ask, and it will be done. But think very hard before you ask me. Think very, very hard. So, as if being scolded by an impossibly beautiful fairy prince for climate change wasn't bad enough, directly after the interview I was summoned to the Pantheon's one and only conference room for a training session with 2 other T-class agents. Charlie was there to wrangle the trainer. 3 guesses as to who that trainer was. The familiar bolt of terror Christoph's presence never failed to elicit shot through me, but as usual I ignored it and took a seat. Christoph looked at me for an uncomfortable moment, but for once he didn't pop off with something gross. gross. You were with the elf prince. I unsuccessfully bit back a particularly stupid feeling smile. He grabbed Charlie's ice water and slid it across the table to me. Hey, Charlie snapped, she needs it more than you. When he opened his mouth and I saw that he had once again pulled all his teeth, I tamped down my disquiet and settled in. The subject of the training was the Harlequin and designed for people who haven't yet encountered him in the field. Christophe has been on hand for every recapture, hence his trainer designation. There is not a lot I can tell you, he told us. This is because the Harlequin is chaos. Chaos is not predictable, but even chaos has patterns from time to time. The Harlequin has one pattern that is very important for you to recognize. He went around the table, setting a packet down in front of each of us like we were kids in school. When the Harlequin meets you, there is a chance that he will begin to quote a song at you. Look at your papers for examples. I scanned my packet, which consisted of several photocopied police reports. The first one dated back to 1944. According to the report, a tall red-headed man in stage makeup and a fur coat was arrested for public indecency. He was immensely uncooperative during booking. Rather than try to explain, here's the direct transcription of the report. Officer, sir, hold still. Suspect. Alright, stop what you're doing because I'm about to ruin the image and the style that you're used to. I look funny. Officer, the costume and makeup might be why. Suspect. But oh, I'm making money, see. Officer, well then maybe a nice fat fine will teach you a suspect. So, oh world, I hope you're ready for me. Now gather round. I'm the new fool in town and my sound's laid down by the underground. I'll drink up all the Hennessy you got on your shelf, so just let me introduce myself. Officer, that's exactly what we've been trying to get you to. Suspect, my name is Humpty, pronounced with an umpty. Officer, Mr. Umpty, are you? Suspect, oh ladies, oh how I like to screw thee. Officer, sir. So anyway, the report continues on like this with an increasingly apoplectic cop trying to control an increasingly shrieky Harlequin, who abruptly cuts off at the end of the first chorus. The interview transcript ends and a dense incident report follows that I was too tired, stressed, and anxious to parse. So you're telling me, I said to Christophe, that this thing was quoting the Humpty dance at small town cops during World War II. It is one of his favorite songs. If it was 1944, how did he know? I don't know. He has quoted songs at me 15 years before they were released. Time does not carry the same restrictions for him as for us. Okay, well, I know he's your scariest monster, but that's kind of hilarious. No, actually, that is hilarious. It is hilarious. It was also hilarious after he finished and folded the cop into a human balloon animal. I processed this for a moment, then said, well, that's still kind of funny. And will it be funny if it happens to you? I guess not for me, but the rest of you. No one will laugh if the Harlequin turns you into a human balloon animal, not even me. I'm touched. That's good to start. Now let me know how you like to finish. Christophe, Charlie said sharply. The T-class agent on my left looked as revolted as I felt, which gave me a surge of courage. Okay, so once the Harlequin starts screaming song lyrics at you, is it a guarantee that you're getting balloon animaled or number? Now, Marine, it becomes a problem if he finishes the first verse in the chorus. Even then, it is only a half chance he will balloon animal you. The other half is he will decide he likes you. You don't want that to happen either, but speaking from experience, it is the better of the two. Oh, so the Harlequin likes you? Ask him when you talk, was the arch response. He will tell you everything, he does not shut up. Is there a way to stop him once he starts singing? Not that we know. So, the speaker was the T-class agent on my left, a young man I knew by sight but not name. The last thing we'll get before we die is a theater geek from hell-shrieking digital underground before folding us in half. Not in half, in knots. My mistake. Yes, it may happen. I cannot promise it won't. I can promise I will be with you and I will get between you and him. I do not think he will not tie me in knots. I don't know what else he will do to me or to you, but it will not be that. You are truly a comfort, I said. I can be much more than that. Once again, the T-class agent made a face that accurately reflected my feelings. I felt another surge of camaraderie. Christophe, Charlie said, this behavior's not in compliance with your treatment plan. With that, we continued with our surviving the Harlequin seminar. By the time it ended, I felt worse than ever. Before I could sink fully into the doldrums, however, the other T-class agent pulled me aside. Is Charlie gone? Good. Okay, first, Mikey Wingeride. He held out his hand. Yes, that Wingeride. I know you don't know me, but I need to talk to you right now. When did you meet him? Charlie? No, nobody cares about Charlie. Christophe? I don't know, 2 weeks ago? 2 weeks. Okay, that makes sense. Now look, you're going to hate this. I would hate this if I were you. I hate this for you. But trust me, the way to make him stop that stuff is to be really nice. As nice as you can. Treat him like he's family. The only family you've got. Dread, confusion, and more than a little anger came rolling on in. Do you know what he is? Better than you do, and I'm not saying he's a good guy. I know what he did, I know what he does, but I also know what they've done to him here, and you have no idea. The best thing you could possibly do for yourself is try to undo some of it, and the only way is to make friends with a sadistic serial killer who likes to sexually harass me. Listen, just pay attention, we're all here. You're going to talk to each of us, right? Watch us in between, listen to us, listen to him. I know what he did, he repeated. I know what he does, but I promise he is the only one who gives a genuine crap about any of the inmates, including you. Even you? Especially me. Don't let the name fool you. Don't let him fool you either. And with that, T-Class Agent Mikey Wingeride hurried away. Naturally, this conversation caused me to have many questions, concerns, and realizations. The most important of which is the growing suspicion that the Harlequin colluding mole Raphael Wingeride is looking for just might be his relative. The least important is that I have met 4 Wingerides. 3 of them, Raphael, Gabriella, and Mikey, appear to be named after archangels. And then you've got poor Charlie. Just Charlie. I guess it's true that nobody cares about him. For an hour, maybe 2 after I called the Vatican, I sat on the front steps of the house, staring into space. Father Felipe was nowhere to be seen. I figured that was for the best. He'd probably taken Father Anthony's advice and run back to his church. With any luck, he was sleeping. I sat shaking on the steps. I reeked of blood and worse. Of course, I thought through the horror I'd just witnessed. The thick air, the smell of exposed guts, the glee on Maya's face as she slurped up Father Anthony's intestines. But that wasn't what dominated my thoughts. I'd seen her, Sophia, just as clearly as if she were still alive, warm, and sitting beside me, teaching me to sew. Without question, she had been there. She had saved me. And so I must have made an odd sight when the priest sent by the Vatican arrived. I sat there covered in several people's blood, including my own, my fingers bleeding from my clumsy needlework, smiling like I'd just seen God himself. "So good to find you well, Father Matthew," said a tall, muscular priest with a thick gray beard. "I'm Father Tomas. This is my trainee, Father Anselmo." He gestured to a rail-thin, bald man with angular features beside him. "I thought I knew all of the exorcists working in the States," I said, still half dazed. He shook his head. "We are not ordinary exorcists," he explained. "We belong to a particular order, where discretion is of utmost importance. Still, we know rumors of our existence circulate. Perhaps you've heard of the Knights of St. Michael." I shook my head. "Good," he said. "We are only called upon in cases requiring certain non-traditional skills. Based on your call, the Vatican believes this may be one such case." Father Anselmo shot him a look, and I recognized it immediately. It was one I'd given Father Anthony a dozen times when we arrived at the home of some poor girl claiming to be possessed, but really just needed a few years of therapy, maybe some antipsychotic meds. "What?" I asked. "You don't believe me? What I saw?" "We're certain you saw something," said Father Tomas. "Whether you performed a common exorcism or encountered something greater remains in question." "Look at my clothes," I shouted, staggering to my feet. "Look at the blood on my hands. Smell me. Don't you smell it?" That's when I looked down at myself and realized I was clean. Not even a drop of blood decorated my robes. The only evidence of my encounter was a small scab on my index finger from where I'd pricked myself with the needle as I sewed Maya's mouth shut. I looked back at the house. Even the dark smeared window was clean now, with a gentle light shining out. Without another word, I ran back up the steps and opened the door. Inside, the house was pristine, almost unnaturally so. The blood was gone, the stink too. Somewhere, a vanilla candle was burning. Gentle music played on the speakers overhead. The girl, I said to no one in particular, and now I was running up the stairs 2 at a time again. I ran down the hall and burst into her room, half expecting to find her hanging from the ceiling by her feet, a mass of skin and sinew hanging from her mouth. Instead, I found her lying still, almost death-like in bed. She wore a spotless white dress, and her hair fell about her head on the pillow as if perfectly arranged strand by strand. She was beautiful now, no longer the creature of paper and bones I'd encountered hours earlier. The only evidence that anything had happened was the silver thread still in place, sealing her mouth shut. I heard the other priests approaching from behind me. "None of this is right," I said. "None of it was this way." "I believe you," said Father Tomas, putting a hand on my shoulder. "We have seen stranger things. The devil can be exceptionally tidy when he chooses to be." Or could it be that Father Matthew elected to perform a wholly unnecessary surgery, said Father Anselmo, gesturing to the girl's lips. We can pray that such is the case for her sake, said Father Thomas. In the meantime, we will proceed as if this is a true lieutenant of hell, likely of the third circle. I gave him a look. There were no such things as circles of hell in the canon. Gluttony, asked Father Anselmo, incredulous. I thought they were supposed to be fat. Father Tomas shook his head. Remember your Aquinas, he said. Gluttony takes 5 forms. Laute, too luxurious. Studios, too elaborate. Nemes, too large a quantity. Pre propere, eating at the wrong time. Ardenter, eating too fast. A glutton may be any size. I could tell Father Anselmo wanted to argue, but he was the trainee after all, and it wasn't becoming to argue, especially in front of a stranger. He bit his tongue. Very well then, said Father Thomas. Then we shall proceed. Prepare bindings of cloth soaked in holy water. Wrap her once at the shoulders, once at the wrists, once at the ankles. Father Matthew, if you are feeling up to the task, another set of hands would be useful, especially since time can be a factor in some cases. We will want to get her back to the Vatican as soon as possible before... As he spoke, I saw a hint of movement coming from the girl's direction. Glancing over, I saw something thick and black peek its head from between the 2 middle stitches of the mouth where the gap was greatest. It could have been a worm, a tongue, a snake, a centipede. Before I could get a good look, it pulled back inside. I helped Father Anselmo prepare the bindings, though I could tell he would have rather done the job himself. They brought holy water in some kind of red-brown earthenware jar that I hadn't seen before. We soaked 3 long strips of cloth and bound the girl, who didn't stir once. Though I had never heard of such a protocol before, the process made sense. 3 bindings representing the Trinity, the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit uniting to bind the demon. 2 hours later, we were on a private plane bound for Rome. The aircraft was luxurious by any standard, with plush white leather chairs emblazoned with the flaming sword of Saint Michael in delicate black embroidery. 2 pilots sat up front through a security door that looked extra thick. They made a point of letting me know they were both well armed. Of course, I wondered why such levels of protection were necessary, but I just nodded as if this was all perfectly normal. Enjoying the accommodations? Asked Father Anselmo. Father Thomas had drifted off at takeoff, snoring loudly. Maya lay nearby in a seat they'd reclined to dorm a bed. Father Anthony and I flew coach if we flew at all, I said. Usually we drove. He scoffed. I suppose you think yourself superior because of your humility. I never said any such thing, I said, but he was right. You didn't need to, he said with a sneer. He cracked his knuckles and then scratched furiously at the back of his head. You only reveal your own ignorance. We, the Knights of St. Michael, are the very sort of God. One does not enter the battlefield on bended knee, supplicating to his opponent. He comes out in armor of gold, wielding a sword of fire, striking fear into the hearts of the demons. Now it was my turn to laugh. So the leather seats, that's the modern day equivalent of a flaming sword. I'm sure they terrify the devil. Father Anselmo stood and stretched. He itched at his scalp again furiously. I read about you on the way over, he said. A convert, widowed. You wear the robes, but you're different than those of us who grew up in the faith, who never knew a woman's touch. Before, I'd been slightly annoyed at Father Anselmo. Now, at the mention of my wife, I felt my blood rising. God comes to us all at different times, I said quietly, but my hands were balled into fists. Save it for the flock, he said. We're all priests here. We should speak honestly. You and I, we're not the same. When my wife was in high school, she had a terrible boyfriend. He was an honor student and a top athlete, popular, beloved. No one would have suspected the pain he inflicted on her in private. Even when we started dating, 10 years later, she couldn't describe what he'd done to her physically, in the dark of night one summer alone in his family's cabin. No one for miles around, a fact he whispered to her over and over. All she would say is that a few days later, after praying the pain would go away on its own, that she'd driven herself to the doctor, who gave her stitches and promised not to tell her parents. Somehow, even after what he'd done, she couldn't break up with him. They continued dating through prom, even into the summer after senior year. She tried not to be alone with him, but it was futile. He hurt her again and again. When they finally broke up, there was no big confrontation. It was just the standard ending where they both went to college and drifted apart, eventually realizing they were no longer a couple. uncle. When they saw each other on holiday breaks, they acted friendly, even though his presence was enough to send her into a panic. After hearing the story, it occurred to me that I might have a moral obligation to find this man and hurt him as badly as he'd hurt her, maybe to kill him. Partly to spare any future women he might date from a similar fate, but if I'm being honest, it was mostly pure revenge. Naturally, Sophia was utterly opposed. Maybe she wanted to protect me from the consequences of such a thing. More likely, she knew I wouldn't have a chance against him. He'd been an all-state wrestler and outweighed me by 20 pounds. Eventually, we came to a kind of agreement. I wouldn't seek the man out, but if I ever happened to bump into him, I was allowed to do whatever I wanted. For many years, whenever we visited her hometown, I felt a surge of adrenaline anytime a man matching his description walked in the door of a restaurant. "Is that him?" I'd ask, and she'd shake her head no. Gradually, we visited Sophia's hometown less often. I never did see the man in person. As far as I know, I'd still have her permission to kill him if I ever bumped into him. "You're right," I told Anselmo after a moment. "We're not the same, and since we're going to be honest, maybe you'd be a better priest if you'd had a couple of rolls in the hay before you put on your collar, even just to know us sinners a little better." He was scratching harder than ever at the back of his head now. "We're not the same," he was shouting now, so loud that Father Thomas began to stir in his seat. "You didn't deserve to capture a lieutenant of hell. You got lucky. You weren't even properly trained. You just finished one last stitch. You're not even a real priest." He practically roared the last word. It had a strange echo, like it had been harmonized by two voices at once. As he spoke, he tore at the back of his skull again, and this time I heard a ripping sound, like flesh unzipping in two. Blood began to accumulate on his shoulders. "Father Anselmo," said Father Thomas quietly, fully awake now. "Please step to the side of the plane. Kneel, fold your hands in prayer." "I'll do no such thing, you meathead," shouted Anselmo. It was clear that two voices were speaking in unison now, his and another deeper one emanating from the back of his skull. Suddenly, without warning, two things happened. Father Thomas began to say a Hail Mary in the original Latin, so fast that the words flowed together in a steady hum. Second, he pelted Father Anselmo with a jar of holy water that exploded as it collided with his chest, sending fragments of pottery and liquid everywhere. Behind me, he shouted between recitations. I stepped back. As I did, the plane shook and I nearly fell. The sky had been cloudless when we took off from LA. Now, dark thunderheads had gathered outside, blotting out the sun and pelting the small windows with rain. Father Anselmo had taken a step back after absorbing the force of the water jar. He also turned 180 degrees, revealing his back to us. There, I saw a bloody face no bigger than a baby's skull protruding just above where his neck met his hairline. The baby's contorted mouth shouted every syllable as Father Anselmo screamed, "There's nowhere to run to, priest. You're trapped up here with me now. This time you're mine." "Bifrons the Two-Faced," said Father Thomas. "I thought I recognized your—" Before he could say another word, Father Anselmo Bifrons now charged at him. I realized that in addition to the tiny head, he'd sprouted an extra set of arms and legs, which extended from his elbows and knees and had now grown almost as large as the original ones. The fresh limbs were bare and bloody, glossed with a sheen of mucus like a newborn baby. Bifrons fell on Father Thomas with his full weight, beating at him with the bloody limbs and biting at his face with his fast-growing new head. But Father Thomas had been prepared. Pushing Anselmo to the side with one hand, he took a small silver blade in the other and stabbed it to the hilt into the baby head's right eye. The baby screamed a low growl that seemed to shake the very air inside the plane, and the aircraft dipped again, this time by 100 feet or more, tossing us all off our feet. When I looked back at Father Thomas, his forehead was bleeding from falling against the edge of a chair. Ignoring the injury, he dug into his bag and removed 3 more knives. "Demon of greed," he said, gesturing to the demon. "Bifrons. We can contain him if we seal all 4 eyes. Try to stay back. Let me work." Even as he said it though, I could see him wobbling on his feet. He touched his forehead and the blood was gushing now. "Bad luck, Father Thomas," said Bifrons. "I suspect our next little conversation will be in my place." He charged at Father Thomas again, but the priest was ready. Deftly, he stabbed 2 knives into the eyes that had once been Anselmo's. The demon howled in pain, so loud that my ears began to ring, and I fell to my knees. Outside, the clouds had fully blotted out the sun. Everything seemed to be shaking. I wondered if we were falling into the deep black sea. Tomas fell back now, his head thwopping the ground with an unpleasant crack. He didn't open his eyes. Across the plane, the demon rose, fixing me in its one remaining eye. The lights shorted in the plane, and the engines went silent. Everything was black, save for the occasional flash of lightning. It seemed to me that I was about to die, or that perhaps I already had. Perhaps the rest of my existence would be like this, surrounded by darkness with the constant feeling of falling, a demon laughing a few feet away. Of course, fear gnawed at me like a family of mice nibbling at my guts. But could I be blamed? Wouldn't anyone be afraid in such a moment? Bad luck for you both, said the thing. At least you'll finally be able to visit your dear wife again. Sophia, isn't it? I hear she's been missing you greatly. At the mention of Sophia's name, reality snapped back to focus. It was as if the plane was holding in midair. Gravity felt somehow lighter. I got to my feet, my fear replaced with simple, blind rage. Suddenly, the thing in front of me wasn't Bifron. It was Sophia's ex. I reached forward and uncurled the final blade from Father Thomas's limp, bloody fingers. I told you not to talk about my wife, I said. I could feel her there with me again. Silently, I asked if our deal was still on, if I could still kill him. I can't be sure, but I think I heard her whisper yes. Now it was my turn to charge forward. My vision narrowed. Through the darkness, all I saw was the one cruel white eye staring at me. I thought of my wife. Then I drove the blade home. On the tarmac in Rome, a man with red robes was waiting for us. I recognized him from a pamphlet I'd once read as Cardinal Robles. He reacted little as he surveyed the bloody scene. The pilot still hadn't left the cockpit. I suspected it was some sort of protocol. Father Thomas lay in my lap, his head bound with a pillowcase I'd fashioned into a makeshift bandage. Both Maya and Anselmo's bodies lay peacefully on the floor, her mouth sealed with thread, his eyes with daggers. After a moment, the cardinal began to laugh. "You'll have to forgive me, Father Matthew," he said. "It's not often that I send my men out to capture one demon, and they come back with two." I coughed up a bit of blood. I wondered when I'd been injured. I didn't feel like laughing. "Enough," he said. "I think we better get these two back home before a third one shows up. What do you say?" I nodded weakly. "We'll get these two to their new accommodations, and then we're going to have a nice long chat," said the cardinal. "I'm starting to think that Saint Michael has big plans for you." I squirmed uncomfortably in the ancient stool, its uneven padding forcing me to sit at a slant. In retrospect, I'm sure Cardinal Robles chose it on purpose. He wanted to see me as uncomfortable as possible. All part of the test. Of course, I was nervous already. As intended, the Grand Chapel's ceiling soaring above us made me feel small. 66 feet above us, God reached out to Adam, granting him life. The metaphor was obvious. I was Adam, waiting for my prize. But what was the Cardinal about to give me? The old man fixed me in his gaze. "What do you know about hell?" he asked after a few moments. I thought back to my training. "Hell is the absence of God," I answered carefully. He smirked. "Good, cautious answer. We like caution here, sometimes. Other times we prefer cojones." He started laughing as if he just made some kind of outrageous joke. The Cardinal had grown up on the streets of Montevideo in Uruguay. He had a reputation for crude jokes. Some people called him direct. Others called him a jerk. I suppose he was both. "Let me rephrase," he said. "Suppose I were to ask you the geography of hell. Could you draw me a map? Could you describe its mountains, its swamps?" I shook my head. "I have never thought of it as a physical place," I answered, still careful. "Of course not," he said. "But you're not so stupid as to deny the connection between the physical and spiritual, correct? Take your little altercation in Los Angeles. You sewed the girl's lips shut, correct? But if that's all you did, there would have been no effect. You were able to quell the demon's hunger because the sewing of the mouth had a metaphorical, spiritual equivalent. Same with the demon's eyes on the plane. Think of Matthew 18:9. And if thine eye causeth thee to stumble, pluck it out and cast it from thee. It is good for thee to enter into life with one eye, rather than having two eyes to be cast into the hell of fire." "Now I'm a bit lost," I confessed. The Cardinal rubbed at his temples, clearly disappointed. "Let's try this one more time. Stop being so careful, or I'm sending you back to the States to study under Father David." I shuddered at the thought. Father David was a notorious coward, a priest only fit to deal with minor exorcisms. He had called the Vatican for assistance so many times on major ones that he'd earned the name Father Backup amongst his peers. "Those things you sealed, where do you think they live? Think back to Maya Knowles' house." I closed my eyes and thought back to the house where I'd sewn Maya Knowles' lips shut. I had spent every hour since then trying to block out the smell of blood and colon, the thickness of the air. Suddenly, I found I was speaking almost without trying. "A swamp," I said. "Thick mud, stuff raining from the sky." The Cardinal's eyes lit up. "Yes, yes, more." Someone always screaming animal sounds. the air is freezing. There's a constant hail pelting the burning mud. Yes, he shouted, and then he began to recite, in the third circle I arrive of showers, ceaseless, accursed, heavy and cold, unchanged, forever, both in kind and in degree, large hail, discolored water, sleety flaw, through the dun midnight air streamed down amain, stank all the land whereon that tempest fell. I struggled to remember where he was quoting from, certainly not the Bible this time. Inferno, he said after a moment, looking disappointed. You're not a literary man? I studied engineering in college, I said, more of a math brain. I do remember something about Dante being non-canonical. He rubbed his temples again. There was something exaggerated about his movements, like Donald Duck losing his cool in an old cartoon. There are truths in this world that are better kept secret, he said. The church must act as a shield sometimes, you know, guarding the flock from the fiery darts of the wicked, and so it is with us exorcists. I looked up at him, slightly confused. I wasn't aware that you were an exorcist yourself. I mean, you're a cardinal. He started laughing. There's a lot you don't know. He stood, stretching slightly. Then he began to lift the hem of his robe. I looked down to see a deep scar running from his ankle to his knee. Got that one from a demon of violence named Toru. Everyone was sure I'd lose the leg below the knee. Doctors are idiots, of course. He raised the robe further and turned from me, exposing 4 parallel scars across his back. Those are from Mammon himself, demon of greed. He got away from me, but not before he left me this little souvenir. He paused, looking up at the ceiling, up at God. They're demons, you understand. They're different than the minor entities responsible for most possessions. Even what the church calls a major exorcism is really just the minor leagues compared to what we handle. These demons I'm talking about, they are the lords and lieutenants of hell, professional soldiers for the other side. More exorcists will never encounter one over the course of a whole career. The thing that was inside Maya Knowles, I started to say, was Lady of Hell, a demon of gluttony, quite powerful. Really, you shouldn't be here today. If things had gone according to the demon's plan, she would have eaten you too, and then consumed her own host body like an Ouroboros, breaking her own arms and legs and swallowing them whole. I was beginning to feel sick, and if I'm going to be honest, I was afraid. Everything I'd known about demons up to that point was suddenly invalid. I thought I'd been a soldier for the church, but now I realized I was playing parlor games with Hell's second stringers. Were the things that had taken Maya and Anselmo the worst things out there, or were there even worse horrors to be discovered? Why are you telling me all this? He smacked his head and muttered, Dios mío. Then he looked up at me. Isn't it obvious? He finally asked. I want to know if you want in. If you want to play in the major leagues, mijo, do you want to fight some real demons with us, or do you want to go back to sprinkling holy water on little kids pretending to be possessed so that they can get more attention from mama? I thought of the demon slurping Father Anthony's guys through the tiny hole at the side of its mouth. I thought of the baby head sprouting from Father Anselmo's neck, its deep, guttural laugh. I thought of the foul air, the smell of crap. Cardinal Robles held up a hand. Don't answer yet, he said. It's enough to know you're considering it. Before your answer, you need to see the reality of what we're up against. He swept his arm out with a flourish. Follow me. Asterisk. Do you believe in God? Any kind of God? I looked up at Sophia. It was a bold question for a second date, but she was asking it anyway. Even before I'd asked her out, I'd known Sophia was religious. Not that she was a fanatic or anything, but she went to church most Sundays, which was unusual in our social group. I shrugged, hoping we could deal with the question quickly and move on to another topic. I think at some point, I decided it was one of those big questions that you could never answer, so I stopped asking. I try to spend my time on problems that have solutions. She silently ate a few forkfuls of her salad. I'm assuming you do, I said, trying to break the awkward silence. Believe, I mean? Well, I don't believe in God, she said after a bit. Believe implies there'd be a possibility of doubt. I know there's a God, because I know there are demons. I've seen them at work. I topped off my wine and took a drink. This was getting interesting. What do you mean, seen them? This is going to sound crazy, so I'll understand if you get up from the table after a bit and walk out on me. I won't be offended at all. We can still be friends after. I met her eyes. They were deadly serious. I'm not gonna do that, I said. You can tell me. Now it was her turn to take a long drink. When I was younger, 4th grade, I was possessed for a few months, she said. I almost spit out my wine. I know how it sounds, she continued. I used to be embarrassed to tell people, but it's part of who I am. There was a demon living inside me. It pushed me to a dark little bubble that I didn't know existed. It was terrifying watching her through a black haze, saying the most vile things to my parents, my sister. I'd always been a good kid, at least that's what I thought, but I must have let her in somehow. She was crying now. For a second, I wondered if I was was on a date with an insane person, but when I looked at her, she didn't seem even the least bit crazy. I reached out and took her hand. "I'm so sorry," I said. "It's okay," she said. "The church they sent people, exorcists, it turned out to be something minor," they said. "It didn't feel minor to me, but their prayers made it go away." "I'm sorry," I said again. "What else could I say?" "Don't be," she said. "It was a gift. After that, I didn't have to believe anymore. I knew there was something out there, a bad thing and a good thing. I've gotten to carry that with me every day of my life." Asterisk, I followed Cardinal Robles through a series of rooms and doors, each less grand than the last. Gone were the frescoes and magnificent tapestries. Instead, we weaved through corridors of simple brick. I realized that the architecture too was growing simpler, older. The brickwork was uneven, caked with centuries of grime. The air began to grow cold. Without realizing it, I recognized that we'd been walking slowly downward. There were no windows here or even electric light, just large candles inset into the walls. Of course, everyone knows about the grandeur of the current apostolic palace, but like many things in life, truths lurk beneath the surface that most people never realize. Some of these bricks you're seeing now go all the way back to the 4th century. This was all part of the old St. Peter's Basilica, constructed by Constantine I. He was a convert like you know. The path we followed was winding and haphazard. Without the cardinal there, I wondered if I'd be able to retrace my steps and escape. Escape. That word started to echo in my mind. I realized I didn't like it here. I hated it. Wanted to get out at any cost. Back to the light, the murals, God and Adam. Then something shifted in me. Somewhere not too far away, I felt her presence. It was unmistakably Sophia, as if she just walked behind me in the hall. I turned, sure I'd seen her, but she was gone. It was enough to make me keep walking forward. Finally, we came to a door. "Beyond this door is no return," said the cardinal after a few moments. "Even if you choose not to join us, you will have seen things beyond your imagining, beyond the worst descriptions of Dante or even Revelation." For a moment, I only stared at the door handle. It looked ornate and ancient, filthy from the grime of 1,000 hands of 1,000 priests. Beyond it, I heard something that sounded like the clanking of metal on metal. "Go ahead," said the cardinal. "Open it." I took a step back in revulsion, but when I looked again, I saw now a handle, but a woman's hand, soft and welcoming. I knew who it belonged to, saw the familiar wedding band on the ring finger. I knew somehow that if I went forward, I was moving closer to her. I walked forward and opened the door. We entered a room built of ancient stones. It was perhaps as large as a high school gymnasium, but perfectly round with many doors extending in all directions. To one side sat a man in priest's robes and a thick leather apron. Nearby, a cauldron of molten silver set over a roaring fire. As I watched, the priest said a blessing over the silver, then poured it into a large cross-shaped mold. Soon he was pounding on the surface. Beside him, in neat stacks, lay perhaps 100 such crosses, all neatly stacked. "Why so many?" I asked the cardinal, who only smirked. "You'll soon see." He gestured to the blacksmith, who set aside his hammer for a moment. "Where are the new prisoners? Or just the girl, actually?" asked the cardinal, and the man gestured silently to one of the doors, adorned with gold inlay and flanked by small silver gargoyles. The man resumed his work as we walked to the door and opened it. On the other side, I found out what the crosses were for. In the center of a small, dimly lit room lay a cage. More of a box, really, a 6-foot cube. The whole thing had been built of silver cross, all elaborately connected to form an inescapable grid. Inside lay Maya Knowles. Her eyes were no longer closed, but the stitching still ran across her lips. Both of her wrists were manacled in bracers connected on opposite sides of the cage by silver chains. I gave the cardinal a curious look. "This is like no exorcism I've ever seen," I said. He shook his head. "You misunderstand, Father," he said. "This is no longer an exorcism. Maya, and whoever has infested her, will be here as our permanent guests, unable to cause further mischief in the world." I felt something twist in my stomach. "You have to let her go," I said quietly. "I can get the thing out of her. Together we..." The cardinal shook his head. "You could kill her," he said, "release her that way. But there is no saving Maya Knowles' mortal life, which is why she'll be our guest here for as long as she lives. For as long as the demon is trapped within Maya's mortal coil, it will be unable to hurt another soul." "Well, you can't," I said. "Maya, she's still in there. She's an innocent." "Were she truly innocent, the demon would have never infested her," said the cardinal. "Please understand, I know this is a lot to swallow. This is why we work in the basement, out of the light. What we do here takes moral courage. The same same bravery that Abraham possessed when he stood over Isaac, dagger in hand. Thanks to Maya's sacrifice, dozens of others, possibly hundreds, will be spared a similar fate. She is the true cage, the box of silver crosses that just keeps her in place. As he spoke, Maya looked up at me, her eyes pleading. "It's her," I said. "Right now it's her, not the demon. It led her to the surface. She's experiencing all of this." "Of course," said the cardinal. "The demon loves to hide inside. It loves to let her suffer." "Maya can't eat like that," I said. "Can't drink. She won't live long." The cardinal shook his head. "You still don't understand the powers we're facing. With demons of this strength, these lieutenants of hell, the possessed body is essentially immortal. It has no need for sustenance. Maya will still be here long after you and I are both dust." I wanted to fall to my knees and vomit. The cardinal was staring at me hard, trying to read my reaction. "Do you need a drink?" he asked. "Water? Wine?" I found I could barely speak. He shook his head, looking disappointed. "Do what you must," he whispered. "I never claimed it was easy to be a soldier on the front lines." I ignored him and took a step toward Maya. Then suddenly, something compelled me to run to her. I felt around the cage of silver crosses, searching for a hinge that would open or a weak spot on in the soldering. "Step away," shouted Cardinal Robles. He was keeping his distance from both of us. "You still don't know what you're dealing with, and those restraints aren't built to be permanent." Before he'd even finished his sentence, I heard a horrible cracking sound, and I looked over to see Maya's wrenching her arm against one of the bracers. The arm had clearly broken, and now blood was gushing freely from the places where her bone had pierced her flesh. Quickly, she pulled the broken limb from the bracer and swung her limp forearm in my direction, spraying me with blood. The blood splattered across my face, running down my lips and into my mouth, and I was struck by the sensation that I'd ingested poison. "Drink up, priest," the thing inside her shouted before breaking into peals of laughter. I looked around the room, looking for some kind of weapon. I was filled suddenly with a bloodlust like I'd never known. "Step back," shouted Cardinal Robles again. This time he grabbed my collar and pulled hard. He was far stronger than he looked, and I found myself clattering against the ground. He rubbed at the bridge of his nose, frustrated. The demon was laughing now, at me, I realized. "This is your new soldier, Robles?" it asked. "He'll be dead before the week is out." As she spoke, blood continued to pour from her open wound. Seeing my eyes fixed on it, she tried to swing it at me again, but this time I was too far away for the blood to hit me. My stomach turned. If I'm going to be honest, I almost pissed myself. In that moment, I realized I couldn't be in the room another second. My instincts took over. I had to leave. The demon cackled as the fear took over, and I ran. "Go if you like," called Cardinal Robles, "but you can't run from the devil." I was more terrified than I'd ever been in my life, if I'm being honest. Not just of the thing in Maya, but of the cardinal outside the cage, of the whole new reality I'd stumbled into. I ran back to the room with dozens of doors to find the blacksmith back at his work, smoothing out another silver cross. I tried to remember which door I'd come from in the first place, but they all looked basically the same. I walked the circle, fruitlessly searching for some identifying mark, but came up empty. Finally, I just opened one. On the other side was a dark tunnel leading downward. A waft of sulfur hit my nostrils, blowing on a hot wind. I was immediately struck by the certainty that I'd opened a doorway to hell itself. I was about to close it when I heard a voice calling for me. "Matthew," it said, "is that you? I've been waiting for so long, calling to you, trying to bring you here." I could barely speak. My throat went dry, my vision blurred. Somehow, I still managed to speak her name. "Sophia?" "Matthew?" I heard Sophia's voice even more distinctly this time. I was sprinting toward her now as she called my name again and again. The wind in the hallway grew warm, then disappeared, then blew again even hotter, as if some great beast was breathing in the distance. Finally, the hallway ended, terminating in a large chamber built of ancient bricks, all coated in a sheen of wet, where the rocks themselves sweating. Numerous grates lined the stone floor, the hot air wafting up from them and heating my feet through my shoes. In the center of the room, in a cage of silver crosses tarnished from years of neglect, sat Sophia. "Matthew," she asked, "is it really you?" She looked beautiful, better than I remembered. She wore a red silk robe that did nothing to hide her form, and I couldn't help watching the way it fell over her body. She certainly looked better than she'd looked on the slab at the morgue the last time I'd seen her, her face bloodied from slamming against the steering wheel, her neck bent at an impossible angle. I knew what I was seeing was impossible, and yet for a brief moment, just a second, I wanted it so badly to be true that I let myself believe it was. "Come to me, my love," she said. "There must be some way for you to get me out of here." I found myself looking around for a rock, a crowbar, some forgotten piece of metal I would use to smash her cage to pieces. As I looked, we both heard footsteps, fast approaching down the hall. "Never mind that," she said. "Just come closer. Kiss me through the cage. Let me taste your lips just one more time." I hesitated now. There was something different about her skin. It was rippling a bit with a silver sheen. My desire began to mix with fear. I imagined pressing my lips through a hole in the cage only for her to bite them off. I imagined the blood running down my face as she cackled, my flesh dangling from her lips. "Now," she said, and her voice was lower than before. I lifted my right foot from its place on the ground, preparing to step toward her. As I did, she shrugged off the silk dress, revealing her naked body. I felt myself harden in a way I hadn't in years, since she died and I'd given myself to God. Careful not to touch the silver cage, she moved closer to me, just barely not touching the metal. "Come," she said. I lowered my foot to the ground. "The scar," I said after a moment. "The burn on your shoulder, it's not there anymore." "And I'm whole now," she said. "I'm perfect." "You're not her," I said, tears pouring down my face. And as I spoke the words, her skin began to shimmer silver, and I saw her for what she was. A woman wrapped head to toe in roughly made sacks. The bags were made of coarse cloth with silver threaded through, and bound tightly at the neck, wrists, and ankles with thicker silver rope. Before I could speak another word, she lunged forward, lurching against the side of the cage. There was a sizzling sound from where she threw her shoulder against the metal, and she screamed in pain, her voice more like a chorus than a single woman's howl. I staggered back and fell on the slick, wet ground. "You see it then for what it is?" asked Cardinal Robles, approaching from behind me. I nodded. "She has had many names, but she's known mostly as Abizo," said Cardinal Robles. "You can call me Abby if you like," said the thing in the cage. She had retreated to the center now, away from the lattice of silver crosses. "Since we're so close and all, we were just about to have a little moment, weren't we, Maddie?" "You don't know a thing about me," I said, but she started laughing. Then she held up her hand, which was bound inside the cloth bag. She pulled at it with her opposite hand, revealing the outline of a missing finger. "They didn't get all of me in here," she said. "There was a piece I'd left out in the world. Ask them where I left it, Maddie. Ask them where it was. How do you think I've been calling to you all this time? How do you think I know you so well?" I looked over at Cardinal Robles, who slowly nodded. "There's much to explain, but not here." He looked agitated. Walking over to a small hole in the wall, he shouted down, his voice echoing, "Tell someone that the holy water needs a fresh blessing." Then he smiled again and turned back to me. "Natural hot springs," he said, gesturing to the vents. "You bless the water and voila, keeps them nice and docile most of the time. Now come on, before she tries to dress up like your high school crush and gets you worked up all over again." And slowly I backed away, following the cardinal out of the room. The whole time the demon's eyes didn't leave me. Beneath the bag covering her head, I saw her tongue poking out, forming a small wet spot. "See you again soon," she said, "sooner than you think." And when she said the words, I believed her, and I was terrified, because for the first time I truly believed a demon had seen my soul and known the weak places in it, because I knew I was imperfect. Abizal called after us as we ascended through the dreary maze. At first it was my name, over and over again. Then it became more of a guttural moan, some sort of cross between pleasure and pain. Even knowing what she was, it took everything in me not to turn back and run to her. "You're trembling, Father Matthew," said Cardinal Robles. "But is it your body or your faith that's shaking?" "I'll be fine," I said, still unable to control the palsy. I was still trying to digest everything the demon had said. "Is it true," I finally asked, "that she left a piece of herself somewhere? What did she mean?" "Search your heart," he said. Asterisk. About a year into our marriage, I woke to find Sophia missing from bed. I got up and walked down the hall. The house was utterly silent. Then, beneath the silence, I heard a sharp intake of breath, the sound you make when you're doing everything in your power not to cry out. Coming down the stairs, I saw a light on in Sophia's sewing room. I heard the sound again, and I called Sophia's name, but there was no response. Finally, I came to the doorway of the room and looked inside. There sat my wife, a half-finished quilt on her lap. I recognized it as one she'd been working on earlier that day, a blue and white pattern inspired by old Dutch Delftware, except now a deep red had soaked through. "Sophia?" I asked, but she didn't respond. She was doing something with her left hand, picking at it maybe, pressing something. I took a step forward. She inhaled, gritting her teeth, trying not to scream. Then I saw the needle. It was a large one, perhaps 4 or 5 inches long. She had inserted the pointed end into the palm of her hand and was pressing on it now, pushing it deeper and deeper into the skin. As I watched, she pushed with all of her strength, and the needle made a tent of the flesh on the opposite side of her hand before finally piercing through, the blood blooming red around it. She sighed in relief now, tears coming to her eyes. "Sophia," I screamed, running to her, and something seemed to flash on in her eyes. "What are you doing?" "I got 3 stitches wrong," she said quietly. 3 in a row. I had to punish myself. "We need to call a doctor," I said. She was crying now. "There's something wrong inside me," she said. "Something it left behind. It won't come out. It's been there so long, it's all tangled up. It's a part of me now, forever and ever." I was still looking at the needle, trying to decide if I should pull it out or wrap it in cloth before I called 911. "They thought they got it out, but they didn't," she said. "Not all of it." Asterisk, I was nearly hyperventilating as we continued our ascent. The memory of the needle had flooded through my mind all at once. Of course, Sophia had many such episodes. It wasn't exactly that I'd forgotten them, but they were compartmentalized, kept separate from the Sophia I wanted to remember. At the same time, I was well aware that Sophia had been possessed once, and that it had left its scars on her forever after. If I'm being honest, half the reason I joined the clergy was to exact some measure of revenge on the demons that had hurt her. "Wait," I said, "so you're saying that demon, that was the one who..." "Abazu possessed your wife when she was a young girl," said the cardinal. "We sent 2 of our best exorcists. At first the demon fought to stay in. Then, just before they could perform the ritual of binding, the demon escaped back to hell. Apparently she left a bit of herself behind inside your wife." He wiggled a pinky in explanation. "I thought of the thing in the cage, the missing finger under the cloth bag. After that, Abazu possessed another girl in South Korea," he went on, "then a young mother in Australia, a grandmother in Spain. She would use their flesh to fulfill certain desires before discarding the bodies. She moved quickly. In each of those cases, we couldn't catch her fast enough. Our priests arrived to find corpses. Finally, she grew bold and tried to possess a nun in Milan. That time, I went personally and bound her before the demon could escape. Now Abazu remains in the nun's body, caged up as you saw her. She won't hurt another soul." As he spoke the last words, he opened a door, and we entered a light-filled room where the air no longer smelled of sweat. For the first time in hours, I felt I could breathe. "Now you understand, I hope, the need for what we do," he said. I nodded weakly. "The question is," he said, "now that you know everything, do you want to join us?" I nodded again, but with more confidence this time. "I want to catch as many of these bastards as we can," I said. "I want to fill this dungeon."
If you enjoyed these stories, please consider subscribing and liking this video. Let me know your thoughts of these stories in the comments below. I frequently talk to my viewers there. But anyways, I hope you were creeped out.
Just kidding. Stay safe.